Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. WeatherBrains episode number 957. So this is for like the 25th. Is that right? I'm sorry, the 20th, not the 25th, the 20th of May. Way ahead of myself, the 20th of May, 2024. But we're getting close to Memorial Day weekend. This is our pre-Memorial Day weekend show. And if you're new here, this is the pre-show. If you're looking for the actual show content, move the slider over about 10 minutes. But this is this marvelous, magical time of the program where we typically do three things. We share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and from time to time we say really, really, really outrageous things. In fact, some of the classic lines ever delivered on this show, it's during the pre-show. And this doesn't make the audio show, the podcast, the audio podcast. This is only for the YouTube people. And for a lot of people are new here. For those that are new, about 75% of the people that consume this show, they listen to it. The audio podcast. This started as an audio podcast only in 2006. We're 18 years old. We say this all the time. This is not the best weather podcast. There's a million weather podcasts, but hey, we're the oldest. And but 25% watch the YouTube video version. And some dare to watch it live on Monday nights. We do these Monday nights at 7 Central, 8 Eastern. The pre-show comes on about 10 minutes before airtime. And this is where we get the people on the show and, say crazy things and all that. But this part does not go on that audio podcast that 75% of the audience hears. So and we're not on television yet. And I'll say one more thing, too. For those that are new here, this is on local broadcast television in my market. So we have to be very careful and adhere to the broadcast standards. So we're not on the broadcast until the top of the hour here in 8 minutes. So we can get on here and say whatever we want to. So that's the logistical situation here. And I do believe I've got everything on here. So we'll see. I think we have a packed house tonight, but yet I'm the only guy here. So where we are, we're basically the death ridge has set in. We can stick a fork in the tornado season here. For us, it's done as far as I'm concerned. Tornado season here runs from November through May. And it's been rough the last 5, 6 years. It's been really rough. Some of you know that my house was hit back on March 25th of 2021. So having a calm season for this market was welcome. Now, just north of here in the Huntsville market, they had a wild event up there a couple of weeks ago, just a really rough tornado event. But for the Birmingham market, the National Weather Service in Birmingham, all year they have issued count them, 4 tornado warnings. Normally by now it would be over 50. Of course, all the real heavy duty action, of course, has been back in the old traditional tornado alley, the Great Plains. Oklahoma, Nebraska, Iowa, and places like that. And that's where it's going to be this week for the next several days. But down here, it's just and quiet. And I think we need that break. Everybody's concerned about the hurricane season. That's one of the things we'll talk about in the show tonight. And maybe we just needed a break because if it's a rough hurricane season, then maybe we just needed to build up our energy getting into this. All right, let's see if we can bring some of the guests online. And I don't like to scare people. And if you've heard me go on rants here, one of the things that I just don't like, it's fear porn, and it's everywhere, everywhere. And the fear porn over the hurricane season is just absolutely over the top right now. It's almost as if some people are trying to scare people to death that live on the coasts. And I just don't like that. Obviously, you need an increased state of readiness if it's going to be an active season and all that. But you just have to do it in a proper type way instead of fear porning people. And I had the fear porn people, telling my people here that this is going to be the worst tornado season you've had in the last 35 years. Death, doom, destruction. It's all coming. And of course, we had 4 tornado warnings and nothing happened here. And what happens? People just get numb. It's the cry wolf thing. And there's so much that I can't do. But anyway, I'm done preaching because our guests are coming on the show. Yes.
Lots of
Brady,
guests tonight.
can you
Hey,
hear
what's up,
us?
James? Hey, Bill. How are you guys
Hey,
doing?
Brady.
Caught the
If I
tail
had a
end of
shirt
that.
like that, if I had a shirt like that, I'd be a good-looking guy. That's my kind of
Well,
shirt.
this is about $5 on Amazon. So,
That does it. I'm getting it. No,
You need an
I love
angry
cats.
cat, one of your feral cats over there in the background of your deal.
do you have cats, James?
We do at the station. My wife's allergic to them, so I can't have them at home. But
Mm.
somebody dumped 2 kittens in the dumpster here
No.
17
Oh
years
my
ago.
gosh. Are you
So
kidding
one
me?
lady took one home, and we kept the other one. Little black kitten, abandoned, dumped in a dumpster, is a station pet. That is the greatest cat ever. That cat loves me. I
What
mean,
is the name?
I'm
What's
having
the cat's name, James?
well, there's 10 different names for that cat. I just call it BK for Black Kitty. But BK has been out there and it just loves people and it's just happy to be here. And we get the time. Of course, we had it fixed. It's a female. And the tomcats show up and the tomcats rotate in and out. They're looking for love in all the wrong places. But,
No. Oh
we
my
bond with the
gosh.
tomcats and we got a family of raccoons out here and everybody gets along. It's just like a nice little zoo. It's nice. So, and most men
Wow.
hate cats. I love cats.
I know. They get a bad rap, but I think they're awesome. So,
Yeah, and it's just like the movie. What was that movie? Meet the Parents. Do you like an emotionally shallow animal? When that's a great movie. They're talking
oh my
about
God.
dogs and cats and stuff. But all right, enough. Welcome to Animal Brains.
Guys, thanks
Love
again
it.
for having me on too. This has been a goal and a lifelong dream. So
I'm
it's
surprised we
awesome
haven't
to
already
be
done
here.
it, Brady. We at least had a telethon together.
Yeah, exactly. But actually join you guys on the show is awesome. So
Yeah, this is cool. And your
I'm
sidekick,
excited. It's
Serena,
going to be a
there.
good show.
I
Serena,
know.
how many times have you been on the show, Serena? Probably 4 or 5 or 3 or
This is
something.
4 or 5. I can't
He's an
remember.
old veteran, a veteran.
I know. It's so fun to see everybody. So great to be
Well,
here with you guys.
We'll have to have a robe made for you now. Sounds like.
hey, Serena, good to see you.
Hey Brady,
Serena
what's
almost
up?
sounded sincere when she said that a few
Yeah,
minutes ago. She was
exactly.
glad to be here. She almost sounded sincere, almost, not quite.
Almost.
Wow.
I,
Like,
I
I'm
saw the message
wasting my
about
Monday night for this.
I saw the ear. Yeah, you guys mentioning about the earrings. So a friend of
Cool.
mine personally made me a whole set of lightning earrings. I have 3 pairs of tornadoes. I have lightning bolts. She sent me eclipse danglies. I'm happy to give her all the shout outs in the world, whatever's allowed. She's Pammytail, Pammytail on like all the social medias. And she custom makes and has like a slew of like weather stuff. And I am in love and it's amazing. So I don't go anywhere without my earrings now.
Yeah, could you plop that into the chat?
Yep.
I love those earrings. That's awesome.
Yep. And if you tell her that I'm the one that like told you about it, she'll take good care of you. I'm
All
sure.
right. That's great.
And every time Mark Sudduth leans forward, Greg Nordstrom disappears. So
Yeah, this is very disturbing. This is Nordstrom is coming and going.
yeah,
at a rapid rate here.
it's a
He's
Mark
beaming up.
Sudduth magic trick.
There
Wow.
you go.
Just
Now
touch
we
your
see
nose
him,
and he
now
goes
we
away,
don't.
Mark.
This would be a funny weather brains. I don't know why he keeps disappearing. That's weird. It's
Y'all
AI,
can
Greg. He's
compete
not
and
really here.
make each other disappear.
Bill, what'd you have for dinner tonight?
Who you talking to me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had Baumhauer's wings. I was hoping you'd ask me, and you never asked me that question.
This is my dinner right here.
Oh no.
Big SpaghettiOs. It's the greatest ever.
Some googly
changed the
eyed
packaging.
SpaghettiOs.
I
mean,
feel like
this
that
is
does not look
good.
like the packaging I've seen.
No,
Wow.
this is good stuff. It was so good. I'm woozy. It was so good.
How many calories in
Sure
that
you're
can, James?
woozy.
About 250.
James,
That's
do you ever
not a
do the
bad
one with
meal.
the meatballs in it too?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
That one's
Yeah, no,
that's
that-
pretty underrated.
Don't forget we have also beefaroni here in the office. I mean, I'm fully stocked for all
Ooh.
emergencies.
Ooh.
You could probably work for 7 days without having to leave the station.
Oh man, I'm good to go here.
Oh, it's
I'm
been a
a
bit-
prepper. I'm prepped.
It's been a busy couple
Prepped
weeks,
and ready.
hasn't it, James? At least this past week, right?
Actually, in my market, no. It has been in Huntsville, to the north
Okay.
of here. It's been pretty rough up there, but down here it's been
Yeah.
quiet. Of course,
That's good. That's good.
quiet. And welcome to our television viewers. It is the top of the hour, so and we have absolutely no weather issues here. So let's get the recorders going, and we'll start the shoe. All right, track 1, track 2. And here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You've heard James say it a million times. Respect the polygon. At Weather Call, we call, text, and email you when you're in the polygon. So in a way, we make the polygon better. With solutions for personal use, businesses, schools, pools, playgrounds, and RVs, there's a Weather Call solution that's right for you. Check us out at weathercallservices.com.
You're listening to WeatherBrains. They're kind of a big deal.
You heard it, Bill Curtis. Bill Curtis said we're kind of a big deal. How cool is that? I don't know if we're a big deal or not, but we're an old deal. We've been here 18 years. This is WeatherBrains. 18 years old as of this year. This is episode number 957. This is for the 20th of May, 2024, getting set to cruise into a long holiday weekend. Kim Cloco McLean, did you survive the storm in Oklahoma City, Norman, last night?
I did. And interestingly, you just mentioned the, importance of respecting the polygon. I'll say here in North Norman, we may have had some people who felt challenged to really appreciate the polygon, because there were 2 tornado warnings where we were, sort of just barely included. And the sirens, of course, sounded both times. And my husband actually asked me, why are they sounding the sirens? We're just like barely this little bit in. And I said, because our emergency manager respects the polygon. Respects the weather system.
And because Rick Smith said so.
Yeah.
So I would assume you escaped without any damage there.
We fortunately did. It did stay in South Oklahoma City. It sort of made an eastward jog. It had been going a little bit south of east toward us, but it took a straight eastward jog by the time it got to Canadian County, and that is what spared us of anything. Humorously, though, my husband and I were trying to jump. We have an old Prius that we've been meaning to sell. And unfortunately, I think we've waited just a little bit too long to sell it. It's been sitting in our garage. And I wanted to get my new car in the garage when I saw this monster hail producer, if nothing else, coming right at us. And so we're like trying to jump this old 2008 Prius. And then the sirens start going off. And Patrick's like, what? And I was like, just it's fine for now. Just keep going.
Kim didn't respect the polygon. I can't believe
Kim
it.
eventually respected the polygon. Kim understood that we had at least 15 comfortable minutes to attempt to get my new baby into the garage. And maybe, insurance would probably give us more for the car than we could get by selling it. So it would have just been a real, like an advantageous thing if we could have switched the 2 things around. But fortunately, we are fine. And fortunately also for South Oklahoma City, things there did not become as bad as they could have been, because that is the area where we have just such a high density of very tornado vulnerable people. And when we saw some of those places getting called out, more importantly than our car, we were very worried for those people. So, and I'm sure Rick can speak to this. You've had quite the task today. I think you guys probably felt that relief too.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we're so glad it didn't turn out any worse. I've been home about 30 minutes probably. We were out doing damage surveys all day today and had 2 teams out. So Jim Ledoux and Ryan Bunker and I surveyed the Yukon area, El Reno, Union City, that area, which would have been the tornado that could have moved into South Oklahoma City. And thankfully, those particular tornadoes did not last very long, but they were intense. That tornado near Yukon that we rated probably a higher end EF2.
Oh wow!
Had it gone through we say this all the time, had it gone through a more densely populated area, it would have been a big problem. So we're very thankful it wasn't any worse than that. And out toward Custer City, out in west central Oklahoma, they had a significant tornado out there as well.
it looks like the warnings were just excellent for those tornadoes.
I can take zero credit for that. The team that we had in the office, I wasn't there at the time. I went in later. Um, they did a great job, and we did our first tornado emergency since 2016, I think. I wasn't there when that happened, but there was, the forecasters believed the potential was there. So yeah, it seems like storms in Oklahoma and maybe elsewhere this year have been overperforming a little bit. I want to get a T-shirt that says, tornadoes, like the Jeff Goldblum says in Jurassic Park, life finds a way. Well, tornadoes have been finding a way in Oklahoma. It just seems like this year, and we're up to 80 tornadoes for the state. So
Oh my goodness.
Woo, goodness gracious.
Yeah, and I watched Lacey Swope. Her coverage last night, Rick, was superior without David being there, and Lacey did a
amazing.
fantastic
I'm not sure where David
job.
was, but I did text Lacey first thing this morning and said what a great job she did. She did she was it for hours, and she did an amazing
Yeah.
job. So
And Val and Amy Castor hydroplaned and flipped their truck, I heard, but we're okay.
yeah,
Oh, geez.
But that was scary.
little accident, but yeah, it was one of these deals where the storm just kind of didn't really care what the sounding said or what the atmosphere was supposed to do, or what the cam said how things were going to pan out. It started and it just chugged right down I-40 and we just kept thinking, well, sure, it's not going to make it to the metro. Surely it's going to die soon. It's going to hit it. It's going to hit this magical cap, or it's going to, something's going to happen. It eventually died, but it had to get that close to Oklahoma City to cause us to have to issue a tornado warning that included Moore and Norman and Oklahoma City and all the population centers.
Well,
But
the
yeah,
movement was
it
so
could have
erratic.
been so much different, so much worse.
I think they were going every different direction, so you had to kind of warn for a much larger area, Rick.
And they would stop, and both those storms, the tornadoes began when there was a really strong RFD surge.
Mhm.
We have a damage swath out in Custer County today, over 2.5 miles wide. That's not all
Oh my
tornado.
goodness.
We saw a lot of RFD damage. We had a string of power poles. We walked down the road today, probably a half mile wide, of just snap power poles, and we think that was RFD. But the storms were moving east and then southeast, and then they would stop, and then we had to include Norman in the tornado warning because it looked like that evolution might happen again. And so yeah, it was challenging for sure.
That was a terrifying tornado on camera at Yukon in the night with the night vision and
It was, and yeah, I just, like Kim, I just started, when I saw where that was and where it could be heading, I just started thinking, oh my gosh, we've made it through the whole day. But thankfully it didn't last very long. So yeah, we're very grateful.
Kim, were you trying to say something?
I was just going to say that I felt for the office as I watched it coming toward us, and I knew the environment was really tapering off. There was a very sharp divide in environments between a tornado favorable and then much less favorable environment. And as it was getting closer and closer to the metro, I just thought, it's time to start dying, please. And I saw you guys issue those warnings right up to the county boundaries that included Oklahoma City and Norman. And it was clearly just like this, we're going to wait and see. And you were trying to spare us as much as you possibly could of what could come. But we definitely needed to be warned, and it was very responsible, I think, especially in light of the fact that it was evening and we weren't even the bullseye, there was obviously some threat of some potential for severe weather here. But part of the reason that David undoubtedly wasn't there was because it wasn't one of those big banner days, or at least wasn't supposed to be for our market. And we just had this tail horse Charlie that just emerged, and just took over took over because it was completely unencumbered. It dominated the entire environment, and it just rolled.
Yeah.
And
One storm did all of that, and that's all it takes. We talk about that all the time. It only takes one storm, and there's people whose lives were changed forever in Custer City and Yukon, Union City area. I mean, there's houses totally destroyed, and And but I just got to say one more thing. I don't think I'll ever get over this. Being in the office, we know we're issuing a warning. Phil said this is going to include Norman. It's going to include a little part of Norman, so get ready. He hits the button. Immediately, you hear the sirens go off outside, and immediately everybody's cell phones in the office go off. I don't know. That's just so weird to me that we did that. And then in the city of Norman sirens, I don't know if anybody realizes this, but more communities are doing this. The city of Norman sirens are activated automatically based on the polygon. So the city of Norman sirens are divided into 4 quadrants, 4 sectors. And if the polygon touches that sector or that quarter of the city, that sector sirens sound automatically. So it's literally 2 seconds after finger comes off the enter button or clicks the send icon. So yeah, that's just always kind of freaky.
Let's go down south to Troy Kimmel. Troy, we might hit 90 here this week. Is it 122 down there yet?
Well, it actually got up to 94, I think, at Camp Mabry and out at Austin Bergstrom today, officially our high temperature. I noticed over the weekend, I guess it was Saturday evening, where Del Rio was 106, 107, and that's not that far away. So that's about the only exciting thing I have to say, because there's not much happening around here at all, except for the storms, down around Houston, which were really, if you had a chance to look at those last Thursday night, just really amazing. What we ended up seeing. And I'm involved in a search and rescue group. We had a mission that we had last over the weekend, actually out on Crystal Beach, which is on Bolivar Peninsula down there. And so we were worried about that. It looked like it weakened a little bit when it got that far southeast, but last Thursday, that was a heck of a storm that started out very close to the Austin area. We got beneficial rain out of it, but Houston got it about 3 or 4 hours, 5 hours later.
Yeah, if we have time, I do want to talk about that, because I've seen a lot of Twitter traffic from people that said there was no warning and nobody knew. And when you look back and the warnings look timely. And
and Houston covered I think most, Rick, of the metro area. The Houston office did with a severe thunderstorm warning considerable, or whatever, the big tag with it. Anyone that didn't see that coming wasn't looking hard enough. And as I point out here, people at home have a responsibility. So I'm really getting sick and tired of hearing about this. I didn't hear it. It's because you need to be, you are responsible to be aware, weather aware of things that go on. And if you didn't hear about that in Houston on Thursday, you weren't aware.
Let's go up north to Jen Naramore. Jen, you're missing out on the big tornadoes, I guess. They're all west of you, huh?
I'm okay with that. We've had plenty. No, it's been quiet the past couple of days. Could get some severe midweek, and to be ready for that, I actually did the virtual spotter training on last Tuesday for the National Weather Service, Wilmington, Ohio. And joining me were my nephews. They are twins, 16-year-old nephews, Colton Hunter, sat with me in here, and they went through the questions and what have you, and so we got through everything, and then I'm like, okay, now we have Aunt Jen questions, and so I did Aunt Jen questions. They passed with flying colors, and now they have their little spotter card. So I'm really proud of them. And it's Colt, Colt and Hunter. So they're good kids, and so we did that, and we're ready for the next storm. So, but mid 80s here in Central Ohio today, not too shabby.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so I don't see James A. or Dr. Jacobs on here. So Bill Murray, you take it. And we got a loaded show tonight. This is going to be good. I'm excited.
Yeah, and Mark Sedeth and Greg Nordstrom expire at 8:00. I think they're going to give us an hour. So by the time we get to all the intros, it may be 8:00. So guys, we'll hurry up and get to you. But I'm going to start tonight by introducing Brady Harris. We're thrilled to welcome him to the show. It's hard to believe we've never had him on so far. We did a telethon together. But Brady grew up in Columbus, Ohio. Jen, did you know that?
I did not know that. Are you
Yeah,
right?
I'm still here now.
Yeah, you owe me lunch then.
All right, I'm in.
I like that.
I'm in. Let's do it.
And his passion for weather began there. He studied meteorology at Valparaiso and Ohio State. 7 years of experience as a technology consultant. So maybe you could help us a little bit there, Brady, from time to time. No, I'm just kidding. We've got James. We don't need any extra help. But with 7 years of that experience, he also hosts the Stormfront Freaks podcast one of the great other weather podcasts that's out there. Does a lot of fun stuff. Recently, he launched a live severe weather streaming show called Outbreak, where he and his team now cast extreme weather events. Brady's enthusiasm for weather shines through in his efforts to engage and educate the public. Brady, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. This is a I've been a watcher of you guys for a while, so it's cool to be on the other end now and talking to some legends here. So happy to be on.
Well, it's so exciting to have you here. Tell us about your day job real quick, Brady, before we go around.
Yeah. So
and
funny
talk
thing,
to
I was
Serena here for a second.
Yeah, so I'm a technology consultant. I've done that for about 7 years. My passion's always been weather, and so I think coming out of college, is one of those things where I really gravitated towards the TV side and had a big passion for that. Interned at a couple different TV stations, and James, I've been a watcher of you ever since I was a kid. So, that was really what I wanted to do. But then I kind of realized, like, I got an offer and it was out of town. It was like, in Kentucky to be, a meteorologist down there. And it was really hard for me to leave my family, right? Because I'm really, really, really close with my family. And so, I made the decision to go into consulting. My dad's in consulting, my brother's in consulting. So they had a little bit of pushing me there. But I've always kind of done this weather thing on the side, but with the Stormfront Freaks and everything. But now, like, we're starting a new show called Outbreak, and it's really amazing just to be able to help people, give them, if one person can come away from my show and have learn something about the weather, and we can help tear down that wall of being scared of storms, but be weather aware, be scared, or be prepared, not scared, right? That is my goal, and that is what ultimately I'm doing this for. And so that's really what we're doing with Outbreak, and it's really helping me demonstrate my passion for weather, which I love it so much, and can't wait to keep doing it in the future.
I would have given anything to have had Outbreak and all these incredible weather resources we have when I was a kid, and I was petrified of the weather. Brady, welcome to the show. It's nice to have you here tonight. And one of your colleagues, Serena Arnold, I met Serena 10 years ago at the AMS convention in Atlanta, and I'm so glad I did. She's a dedicated meteorologist and author, and we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. She's known for her contributions to the Stormfront Freaks, has a passion for weather education, uses that expertise to also engage and inform the public. Serena is the author of the Francis Fox books for children. I sent those around. I think everybody had seen them before, but gave them a little preview of your new book, Serena, that's coming out here shortly. And of course, those books for children are there to educate young readers about weather and science in an accessible, entertaining way. Through all this that she does, Serena strives to inspire the next generation of weather enthusiasts. And Serena, you've been on the show 3 times officially. I think this is number 4, if my wonderful spreadsheet that Jen Nairmore and Rick built is correct. But anyway, we'll have to make a rub for you after the 3rd show. So it's good to have you here tonight. But you have an interesting day job too, because it seems like we all have too many jobs, but you have a cool day job also.
Yeah, I do. So I actually do marketing. I like to do that now for a company called Atmospheric G2. So they were part of the weather company and were sold off about 2.5 years ago to do their own thing. And Atmospheric G2 provides weather data to a lot of energy, renewable energy, commodity trading, and energy trading. And it's just been an amazing, amazing experience working for them. Funny story, about 7 years ago, they were a customer of mine when they were, under the weather company umbrella and the IBM umbrellas and all of that. And so I was really looking back to looking to get back into weather. And I knew them and familiar with them, and they were like a family. And it was amazing because the same people are still there from when I was there 7 years ago that were still there from 10 years prior before I even knew them. And so I got to talk with them and told them how I really wanted to get back into a weather with a company that had a culture that really meant something. And it was just the perfect match. And so I've been with them since last summer. And I am actually the director of product marketing. So I do a lot of marketing stuff now, which is really fun because I get to use the artistic side of my brain along with like the scientific side. It's like I've got the meteorological knowledge and have all of that information, but can explain it to other people in a way that's going to be helpful for them. Maybe they don't fully understand meteorology. Maybe they want to understand better what the tools that AG2 offers does. And it's nice because I have the ability to do that. So really, really great organization to be a part of.
Well, it's outstanding to have you here tonight. And Serena and Brady, we're going to put you to work tonight first as we talk to our other two guests. I want to get them out the door because they're out on the plains chasing. Mark Sudduth, you're someone, special, renowned expert in, hurricane severe weather analysis. You've got hurricanetrack.com. Obviously, you're no stranger to the show, having been on here several times, out in the field doing that research and that deployment to collect data to understand these powerful storms. Where are you and Greg tonight, Mark?
We're in Wichita, Kansas, getting ready to study the kinetic energy of frozen hydrometeorites tomorrow.
That sounds like my science project in the 11th grade, where I used polymer sea surface films to suppress tropical cyclone development. And I think that was just a fancy way to spread an oil slick and stop a hurricane, Troy Kimmel.
Right.
But that you just tried to come up with the biggest, fanciest words that you could. But it's really cool to have your sidekick there tonight, Greg Nordstrom. Welcome back to the show, Greg.
Yes, well, it's great to be back.
Yeah, you're an instructor of meteorology at Mississippi State University. 20 years, Greg, is that right?
So I've known you and James now pushing August 16th is 25 years at Mississippi State. Of course, I got my undergrad and then my grad degree, but I've been teaching officially there for 17, 18 years as instructor of meteorology.
Now, you've led teams there at MSU is it 3 straight national forecasting challenges?
Yeah, we
Greg,
won.
Is that really true?
Yeah, we won 3 straight national titles at the weather forecasting contest that's run by Oklahoma. The first 2 years, we snuck by MIT, and then the last year we snuck by Penn State. And we actually did it 10 years, and the worst we ever finished was second.
There you go. Mississippi State, a powerhouse, not only baseball, football, and women's basketball, but knocking it out of the park in forecasting. But it's great to have you here tonight.
Yeah.
What else is going on in your world, Greg? That's cool.
I mean, I'm still teaching at State and enjoying my job and enjoying what I'm doing. I mostly do distance learning now. I don't really teach on campus too much. I still come up there from time to time. But I started with distance learning. I started teaching distance learning actually all the way back in 2004, 2005. So, my wife, she's a meteorologist down in Biloxi at WLOX. So that's why I'm down in Gulfport, Biloxi area, and I do most of the teaching remotely, which I still really enjoy it. I have a lot of students. I mean, some semesters I'm pushing 200 students in one semester.
Wow! So the distance learning is really a mainstay of what you've done at Mississippi State for a long time, isn't it?
Yeah, 20 years now.
That's crazy. Well, James was talking about at the beginning, I think before you joined, Greg and Mark, about the hurricane season and all the hype that's around it. Obviously, there are a lot of concerning signals. What's your take on what kind of season we're going to deal with here?
I think the potential is there with these record sea surface temperatures and the loss of El Nino that we could have, and the potential is there any season. It only takes one. We understand that, but I think the die are loaded this year that we could have societal impacts that could affect the whole country from some major events, plural, instead of it just takes one. I think this is the type of year because we're looking at some unprecedented values. Every day we're seeing some new stuff from either Jeff Baradelli or Michael Lowry or Brian McNulty, Ben Knoll, putting these charts out that we're still at a record, we're still at a record, we're still at a record. And there's no El Nino this year that's going to protect us to provide the shear and the sinking air. And, you're going to have Sal every now and then, Saharan air layer, but it just feels like, and sometimes that does work. Police use that a lot, hunches, right? But the hunch is based on years of experience and science to back that up. and the data suggests strongly that we can have a very high impact season. And it is going to start here in just the next few weeks. And then by, November, December, which of course November is election time. Oh, good. What a great year to have just this unbelievable potential hurricane season.
Yeah. Mark,
great timing.
I've got a question for you, Mark, in relation to that, and Greg too, for that matter. I've read some things lately. You said the next few weeks. I've read some things lately that they're a little concerned that the ocean may not be totally engaged yet out in the Pacific with the returning phase of the La Nina, and that it may be more of a mid and late season hurricane season. Any thoughts on that?
So I haven't seen anything specific that says, oh, we should see a typical, that, right. But you're right that it does take time. There's a lag as we lose that El Nino. But I think that the Atlantic being so overwhelmingly warm,
you're right.
Any chance that we see of subseasonal favorability with MJO or Kelvin wave passages, I believe it'll be a lot like 2020, which we are mirroring very closely in the Pacific. 2020 was a little bit ahead with the cooling of the equatorial Pacific,
right.
But the Atlantic is significantly warmer than 2020. And I just think every opportunity that comes around, the Atlantic's going to take advantage of it. And that first opportunity looks like it's coming up around mid to the latter third of June. And we're going to really find out. That's going to be a real test there of some of these high-end numbers of both named storms, hurricanes, and ACE, the accumulated cyclone energy.
Yeah.
We're going to find out in just a few weeks.
Gulf of Mexico or more of the Atlantic seaboard? Or both?
I was going to say, for me, what's most concerning is the placement of the high. And you look at 2010, big number year, right? But they all missed mostly, right? I mean, I know Earl came close and you had a few close calls here and there. But what worries me is if we get that, that strong high up in the Southeast Canada and New England, it's over. Because that's just an alleyway into the United States. Now, it doesn't mean every single one is going to come here. But for me, if that high develops where some of the long-term models are kind of hinting at, then that's problems, all right? Because there's a big difference between 2010 and a lot of, numbers versus 2020. I know the numbers were even higher and a lot of impact. Because as we know, it just takes one or two really bad ones to make the season horrible.
Is it more, I was asked this a second ago, but we may have talked over each other, more Gulf of Mexico, more Atlantic, more a mix?
Yeah, it seems like it could be more Gulf of Mexico this year with some of the early CANSIPs and NMME stuff. The climate models are aiming a lot of that preset pattern right through the Caribbean, and then it ends up in the Gulf. But I think there will be enough action that it will remind us a lot of 2005, where we still get some hurricanes that come up the east side of Florida. We had Ophelia in North Carolina in 2005, Tammy off the East Coast, I think it was 05 as a tropical storm. But you know what? There are indications too that the Atlantic is so unbelievably above anything we've seen that we might be in for something. And in meteorology, we got to be careful that word unprecedented. We might be seeing something that just completely takes us by surprise. Mm-hmm. And here's the other thing. The worst forecasts that Colorado State has ever had is when they were too low, not too high. 2020, they were way too low. And this year, they're already forecasting a very strong season.
Mark, how do you communicate that, right? Because I think that the forecasts, are the forecasts and they're not painting a great picture. Now, I think the question is how do we communicate that with the average person? And how do we get them to prepare without scaring them and just get them to understand, hey, this is, this could be it doesn't mean it is going to be a bad year, but it could be a bad year. How do we best communicate that with just the average person who may not have heard of Colorado State or any of these things?
It's a great question, and it's a great puzzle to try to solve because the public means so much these days. And I think it goes back to what Troy was saying earlier. I believe the era of sugarcoating should just be gone without, though, tipping all the way over to just complete and utter doom and scare tactics. However, getting people to be aware and reminding them, put this down sometimes from the distraction part and read about the weather because it affects everyone. Even if you are in the northern tier states of the country, this hurricane season could affect you. Why? Because if the Golden Triangle is hit by a major hurricane or Pascagoula refinery is hit, like it did with Katrina, then the gas is going to be a big problem, gasoline supply, and that's going to affect everybody in the lower 48 and beyond. So it's time to pay attention, listen to the science, and hope that it's wrong, if that makes sense. But then that's not good because then we all look bad. But at least we are prepared mentally. That's the first step.
Or at least hope it's a 2010 season where they miss.
But also reminding people that hope is not a planning tool. So it's a very delicate balance. You all know this, and not everybody is a weather geek. And you know what? Most people want to know, is my garage going to flood? That's all I want to know. I don't care about these numbers. What ace, schmace, what's going to happen at my house? And I appreciate that because I think weather is one place where you can be selfish. Hey, how's this going to impact me? And the more we can answer that question for people, at least guide them to where they can find out how it can impact me, then maybe they will start to disseminate that information beyond me to their family, to their office workers and so forth, and maybe it'll make a difference.
Oh, I agree with you completely. So I'm fortunate that I have a healthy following on social media like TikTok. And I did a video recently talking about the severity of hurricane season. And I think the most popular comment I got kind of on the other end of the spectrum is they say every year is going to be the worst year. And it's like, actually, they didn't. Do you want to go back and take a look at the forecast for last year? Because we actually had the warm Atlantic and the El Nino, and there was a lot of discussion scientifically, meteorologically, about how's the season going to play out. And we saw how that happened. So there's the overcoming the public perception is incredibly difficult. And I think you're right. Hitting on how it's going to affect them is really important. But what do we do for the messaging to where it doesn't sound like every year is going to be the worst year, because it does become the boy who cried wolf, right? So now here we've got this potentially historic season ahead of us, and everyone's, in a certain state particularly is kind of brushing it off because they're under the perception they say that every year. How do you deal with that?
It's just,
here's the problem: it's all these jamokes that post 384 model, hour output. Right. It's constant, major hurricane in the Gulf in 2 weeks, over and over and over. The TikTok lady, you said TikTok lady, Florida's going to be annihilated by a Category 6 hurricane. Did you see that one? And that thing had 5 million views. Right. And nobody listens to professional meteorologists. That's where they get the idea that every year they say it's going to be bad because the TikTokers and the YouTubers, to get the views and the clicks and the engagement, that's all they do. And I almost dread hurricane season because it's coming. In fact, it's probably out there now. 384 hours, major hurricane approaching New Orleans. This could be destructive. Prepare now. And they're sick of it. And we've got to be some voice of reason here in the middle of this nonsense. So, Mark, how do you cut through the nonsense?
See, we are the voice of reason. You are, everybody is, and you just keep doing it. Because when the chips are down and these hurricanes are there and you can see that eye and it's coming, the people will turn to the science. Yep. And I believe in that because we've seen it. The other stuff will become and they will eventually see the light and come to where they need to. And I don't think it'll be too late. And I know I'm painting a picture of hope, but I think people are smarter when they are motivated by fear. And that when you see the reality that a Katrina, a Rita, an Ian, or whoever is coming, then they will start turning to whomever in whatever market or whatever source, because all the other stuff is just the fluff. It's and people do get tired of it, and it shows up in their feeds. And gosh, it's hard, but don't give up. Don't despair. Well, we do make a difference.
Well, the other thing too, I was going to say is, actions speak louder than words, and I think this is where experience comes in. I'm very careful about not hyping things or getting people scared about stuff. So I get a comment all the time. They're like, well, if you're saying it's bad, I'm out of here.
Right.
Because I really try hard not to do that, like almost maybe to a fault where maybe I should say a little bit more here and there. But I just try to pride myself in when we get to that point that I'm only going to say it's doom and gloom when it really is doom and gloom.
And
I
I think
love that.
I tell people this all the time. Try and find a credible source.
yeah,
And eliminate the noise. And it's all noise. But Uncle Joe's Hurricane Center is not the best
right.
source here. And listen, and I'm not knocking the TikTokers and the YouTubers. They communicate in an important way. And many of them are good at what they do. Some are horrible at what they do. But
Correct.
listen, the people that are listening to this and watching this, they're weather dweebs. They know. But maybe you can help us by telling your friends and neighbors how to find credible sources of information that cut through all the fluff.
Right. That's
Help
exactly
us.
it. And
one of those credible sources is Mark Sudduth and HurricaneTrack.com. Always like to
Well, thank
know,
you.
Mark, what you're going to be doing this year that's new and different, or some of the same old great stuff that you do already, but you usually have something up your sleeve.
hurricane wise, it's just more and smaller. The camera systems have gotten smaller, batteries have gotten smaller. So we have more live cams, more GoPros. We're working with different people around the coast already to kind of figure out where we might want to deploy equipment. And then the next really big thing is to continue to try to capture that meteorological data. There is data with the video that we're seeing. There's data in there. We use it all the time for social science, for storm surge science. We know that. But the meteorological data, it's really difficult to capture reliable wind data. It just is. The hurricane's job, besides removing heat from the tropics, is to break our stuff, including our scientific equipment. And it is hard. Greg has been with me and the team as we've tried to deploy this equipment. People are trying to record wind speeds in tornadoes and derechos. And we're doing it in hurricanes. There's Texas Tech with their stick nets. You've got the Coastal Florida Monitoring Program, the Dr. What's his name? Forrest Masters.
Yeah.
Is that right? And so there's a lot of effort to capture wind data and pressure data, and we're going to just keep doing that and just try to keep up with what's coming, because we just feel like looking at the data, we better get our sleep now. It's like anticipating the birth of twins. It's coming.
Greg, you studied some of the worst hurricanes, including the 1935 Labor Day storm. And I always read those accounts and was, just like petrified at the stories, of people being pelted by debris and, decapitated and all these terrible things. And I never really could reconcile that, Mark, till I saw your video from Hurricane Michael in Mexico Beach. It all finally came together to me that that's what it looks like,
right,
in a Cat 5 hurricane. And you can't even imagine it, Greg.
Right.
You
No,
can't even imagine it.
And what's scary, as bad as Michael was, and of course horrible, that's quote unquote a low end Category 5. The 35 Labor Day, you're looking at 185 mile per hour sustained with gusts well over 200
in the tropics.
Yeah, with 892 coming over Long Key there, and I was so blessed that I did that. I'm so thankful I went down to the Keys and interviewed the survivors, because they've all passed. They're all gone now. And I did that about 10, 15 years ago. And I'm actually in the process of making a weather history class that I'm in the process of building. And I've taken a lot of those interviews that I've held for all these years, and I'm going to incorporate into the class and start doing different weather events, and not just throwing up all the charts and all the different things, but actually show real interviews from people that survived the storm. And what's really crazy with the 35 Labor Day, I had 2 separate survivors who their accounts crossed paths, and they remembered crossing paths within that. And that to me was incredible. And I had another survivor remember when Ernest Hemingway showed up after the storm with his boat. So some of the stories and things that I was told was just absolutely incredible. And, it's helpful because when you hear these stories from people and you really feel their emotion stuff, that's why I don't play around. Like, people think I just go in these hurricanes and just randomly drive around. That is not true. I find powerful parking garages, concrete reinforced, stairwells, multiple ways out. Obviously, there's no guarantee in anything, but I'm spending at least 24, 48 hours scouting everything out, trying to find the best thing, because you run from the wind, you hide from the water, right? So I mean, you just got to be really careful.
Yeah,
I think I said that opposite, actually.
that's all right. In some of these
That
situations, you got to do it all. Like Michael, he didn't come for Michael. He's like, I don't have a parking garage. You got a parking garage for me in Panama City? There's no parking garage. I'm not coming.
Yeah,
No
and
parking
trust
garage
me,
in
like I
Mexico
wanted to
Beach.
go, of
Right.
course. You know, it's someone that loves being in these, but at the same time, live to chase another day. If
Yeah.
it's not safe, then you know what? I'm 44 years old. I hope to at least double that. So, you know, I would like to keep chasing. So, you know, you got to be smart. You know, I know people see people like us go into it, but keep in mind, we really are, again, there's no guarantees, but we really are trying to be as safe as we possibly can.
And it's against everything, you know, including when it's over, you step out of the vehicle and there's snakes around and you get bit by a water moccasin or something. You have to be completely aware of the whole process. And when people are like, oh man, I would love to go with you sometime. If you ever need any help, I'm like, you say that now.
Yeah.
You say that now. You come with us, and when it's all said and done, the vehicle smells like the worst locker room you've ever been in. You know,
Yeah, you've been sleeping on a concrete floor for 2 days.
right. And you can see some pretty horrible stuff, people in misery, you know, and there's just a lot more to it. And that's what I try to emote in the videos that I do on YouTube, that this is a very serious thing. They are inherently exciting and by that I mean, like right now, if in James Spann's studio an elephant burst into the room, it would be exciting by definition, but it would also be very disruptive and probably
terrifying.
problematic, right?
Real problematic. Yeah.
Right. But it would be exciting. If a car crashed through our hotel window, it would be exciting by definition. Hurricanes get us fired up for a reason. And that reason is that they are the singular biggest powerful storm on Earth with all that energy they're putting out. But that energy creates a storm surge that can wipe a coastline clean. It creates rainfall that can inundate an area far after the hurricane warnings are down, like we saw with Houston and Harvey there. And I can go on and on and on, that they have shaped U.S. history. And, you know, it's coming again. But this season looks like it could be different. And we're just begging people, you have to take it seriously. You know, do something, educate yourself. Everybody's economic situation is different, but do something.
Going back to that weather, history class, that may be a big key to a part of this is hearing from people's firsthand experiences. I mean, when you describe that class and hearing the things that people who said who survived that historic storm, I have my degree and I'd pay to take that class. Like, that sounds so interesting.
Yep.
That could be a really critical part of helping the public understand when we say historic year, or when we say bad, when we say prepare, these are the things you're not considering that you haven't thought of. It's just such a phenomenal idea.
Well, I appreciate it. I mean, it's a work in progress. It's going to take me a little while, but I have the 35 Labor Day pretty much set in stone. Because I live in Gulfport, I'm going to be interviewing survivors from Camille. I'm in the process of that. I'm going to go down to South Florida, interview some survivors from Andrew. I'm going to get out to the Great Plains and try to, I'm going to try. I mean, obviously I love the tropics, but I'm going to try to mix it up. Also some different nor'easters. I try to give a little taste of it all, so it's not just all tropics.
Well, sign us all up, Professor. We're ready to go. Kim Cloco, you signing up for this one?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I had the exact same thought as Serena did. I would love to take that class. That sounds incredible, and I'm really interested. Just continuing to think about this human angle. Mark, you brought up something really interesting. You said do something, right? When you were thinking about people and getting this messaging. I was thinking about this exact thing when we were talking about the social meteorologists and all those people who, make everything seem so dire. Something that is really clearly missing is, what are people supposed to do? What they're supposed to do different from any other year? And I think for me as a social scientist, this is one of the things that I struggle with the most. I appreciate what we're trying to say. I appreciate that we can scientifically delineate among seasons. There's different emphasis we can give. And I wonder, what do you see as the translation of that to what people should do? Is it that they should do something different? Or maybe it's that they should really this time actually do the thing. Like, what is it that people should be doing as they look toward a future with a potentially really bad hurricane season? Everything you talked about earlier, all those potential impacts are extraordinarily point-based. And it is absolutely true that most everyone in this country will not experience a hurricane this year.
Right.
It is not, it's, you're highlighting things that are possible, but it's not irrational for people to look at all of this and say that's a lot of waving of hands and excitement for questionable impact on me. And so I think there maybe could be a helpful emphasis on, well, but you could help yourself if you did something that's not not necessarily extremely burdensome, but like what is it, Mark, that you would think people should be doing in light of a potentially really heavy year?
So that's an easy one, honestly. And when you're laying down and you're scrolling through everything, which you're not supposed to be doing because science tells us that, or you're on the toilet and wasting time there doing your business and you're scrolling, just freaking look up if you're in an evacuation zone or not. You can do it right on your phone. You can Google it. That's the something. It takes a little bit of effort. Find out who your emergency management office is. Find them on social. Start following them. That's the something. That's your thumbs in action that can help you when the time comes. A little thing like making a list of what you might need to take with you, or oh yeah, there's a hotel. I got to take the little doggy with me. Like, just take a little bit of time for you to do something that will make it less difficult later. And it's all right here on this magical thing that we call a smartphone. It doesn't mean that you have to make a lot of effort. And that's the simple part of it. Like, use that power to your advantage because it's all right there. And it's getting so good now, you can even talk to your phone, whether it's through Siri or Google or Chat GPT, and it'll do the work for you. I mean, we are making it so easy, and yet people are still, I'm too busy for that. No. This is not the year to be too busy for it. You need to take 5 minutes and just find out, am I in an evacuation zone? Am I in an area of risk? And go from there.
Check your insurance.
You know what? Oh yeah, right. And yeah, I feel like if people knew that that was the whole message, the totality of what we mean by prepare, they could be a whole lot more motivated to actually do that, to know that that is sufficient information to get you down your path. And I think when we put this much emphasis on the potential severity of the season, when we highlight these worst case scenarios, when we say this year is X% worse than other years or great potential, and to prepare just this very generic thing, it can make it seem like people have to take some kind of extraordinary effort. The same exact thing happens in severe weather. And I admittedly, this is a bit of a passion of mine because I've studied the epidemiology, right, of tornadoes, and people don't understand just how much better off they can be with very small things that they do. Being in a site-built home virtually guarantees survival in every tornado that will occur. That's extraordinarily motivational. It's so much easier to do, but you get tornado outbreak days here, high-risk days, and people feel like they've got to flee well-built homes, and then they do crazy things. They do things that put them in more danger. And so you go from this extreme of like doing nothing to the wild, things, because they don't have what's called response efficacy. They just don't understand all that it takes. And so I'm wondering, maybe instead of the social meteorologists who try to set themselves apart by raising all these red flags, maybe we just look at that and say, you know what, every year they're going to take care of it. They're going to let people know hurricane season's coming, and they'll do the alarmist. Maybe we're here to tell people how easy it actually is to do some stuff that really matters.
To refine it.
Yeah, yes. I will say too, keep in mind, and one of the guests earlier was talking about, you have to take personal responsibility for yourself, because even small preparations now can make a huge difference later, because it's not always a Cape Verde storm that tracks across the lake. Everyone sees it's coming, a Hugo type thing. a lot of times look at Michael, look at Charlie, sometimes these things spin up quickly. And if it goes from you go to sleep and it's tropical storm and you wake up and it's a cat 3 and it's barreling in, it's, a 4, maybe even a 5, it's chaos, utter chaos. You're probably going to go to a grocery store where everyone's ransacked everything. You can't get gas. You can't get anything. So at that point, it's too late. So you really want to make even small things, just a couple cases of water, maybe
incremental.
5-10 gallons of gas, just a few things here and there. Even if you just like Mark said, just a little bit here and there.
And I think making people feel like they have some power, sort of flip it back around. So instead of talking at people, let's talk to people and say, hey, you know what? You've got some control here. We're telling you all these scary things, we being the whole ball of wax of this, including the crazy thumbnails and whatever people, to all of us that are just trying to make it nice and even keel. It's still all this noise that James talked about. It's noise. So let's filter it down and make it so that the voice is, hey, guess what? You actually have some power here. You can make a difference, but it is up to you. And kind of give people that hope there that this is not. So I say this in my videos. When you go to the doctor and you have your checkup and the doctor says you're overweight, your blood pressure is high, your glucose levels are terrible, blah, 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 blah. Have a great day. He doesn't walk out. He tells you what you got to do about it. You got to exercise. You got to do this. You got to do it. It might put you on some meds, I'm sure, but it's not the end of the conversation usually. Now, sometimes we know it is, and that's stuff that's difficult to talk about, but that's our Cat 5 analogy. Yes, there are times when these hurricanes are going to come, and the only thing you can do is evacuate so you live to the next day. But no one ever says at the doctor, you got all these problems and see ya, have a great day. What do I do about it? You get pamphlets, you get usually from drug manufacturers, but that's a whole other story. But they give you something to do with it instead of just, well, I'm just going to go walk in front of a bus. Thanks a lot for that, Dr. So-and-so. And we have that power to tell people, this could be coming, and here's what you can do about it. And that's a good thing. The science is on our side. Let's use it to our advantage.
All the panel agrees with you, Mark Sudduth. That was a very good.
Get very loud about it because it's
yeah, they're going to be calling from the front desk in a minute. Want to know what's going on? Calm it down in that.
What's happening in 124?
Yeah.
Hey, let me tell you a real quick story about
a car crash into 124.
Right.
That's
elephants and car crashes.
That if it crashed into 424, Mark,
right,
that would be really a story.
At the National Tropical Weather Conference a few years ago in South Padre, there was a hotel next to ours, I think where we are now, that we do it at the Courtyard, and we were at the Hilton Garden Inn at the time. But anyway, there was a group of some other convention going on next door to us, and they were seeing all these meteorologists and everybody talking about hurricanes, and it was in April, and they got all scared. And they're like, man, there must be something really bad coming to Texas because there's all these people wearing hurricane shirts, and it was so funny.
We saw Mark Sudduth in the steakhouse. This is bad. Well, Mark, we kind of buried the lead. Y'all are working on a hail project because you're doing that sort of research. So talk about your research, what you're trying to do with it, and how you're accomplishing it. And I noticed you brought Greg along. So
yeah, he's going to help me.
Yeah, tell us what Greg's doing to help here.
So last year, hail caused $60 billion of insured losses. $60 billion. And most storm chasers and people such as Kim want to avoid hail, right? And I was like last June, I was out here with a colleague, and we were just trying to figure out what's my role on the Great Plains. Like tornadoes are fascinating, but I want to be able to contribute to the science, even if it's the social science side. And long story very short here, it was hail. I was like, there's got to be a way where we can study hail, get video of it doing what it does, and really shining a light on it, because I think we see all these pictures of what hail does, and we see pictures of hail in people's hands, but where's all the in-between parts? And so I started doing some work on it, and now a year later, we've got my Toyota Tacoma outfit with a giant hail guard, total top to, almost totally covered. And the idea is to just start somewhere and have a concerted effort like I did with the hurricane storm surge situation, and just bring attention to this very costly and little talked about aspect of severe weather, very similar to rain with tropical cyclones, because rain is sort of a misunderstood impact from the public's perspective. Yet look how destructive it is and deadly. Luckily, hail is not too deadly unless you're just unfortunate or a moron. But seriously, there's a lot to be learned about it. IBHS, Dr. Ian Giamenco, they're out here studying it. You have Sean Waugh, NSSL, with this truck that's got like I'm joking, but like a nuclear device that goes off to shine light through hail. He literally says, "Don't be behind me when we light this thing up if you value your eyesight." I can't wait to see it. We need more information and studies, and just like Sean's doing, literally shine a light on hail, because it's either getting more frequent or we're building more into where it falls. And so it's becoming a bigger and bigger problem. And insurance, I'm telling you folks, insurance is on the verge of a lot of problems in this country, and it's cumulative from the wildfires to the hailstorms to the derechos, the tornadoes, and the hurricanes and the floods. So hail is a big part of it. And I'll also just chalk it up that at 53 years old, it's my midlife crisis.
And then for me, he brought me out just to help him get on the storms, which is weird because I've been coming out here since 2002. I've been chasing the South since 2001. This will be the first time I purposely try to get us in hail. I've always avoided hail at all costs, always. And once or twice we got cotton trafficking and maybe saw up to tennis ball size. So this will be a different approach for me, because I've never purposely be like, let's go in the highest hail core. Let's go.
Right.
So that will be interesting, but I'm up for the challenge, and tomorrow looks like a good day to get going on it.
Yeah. How are y'all protecting the car?
It's got a big aluminum hail guard that a company in Wilmington we hired to build for us. So it's like a turtle shell on top. It's pretty heavy and really reduces my gas mileage, but it protects most of the vehicle. But then it provides anchor points to attach more stuff. Netting, we're actually using like soccer netting or golf netting, experimenting, trying to figure out how can we protect the vehicles. We're going to have all these cameras on there, GoPros, to shoot in high frame rate, to have different experiments eventually that are in front of the cameras to just show people how hail does what it does. But then we want to collect the stones, photograph them in the proper setting, in a fashion to where I can give that data to Dr. Giamenco and his team, and they can make 3D models out of it. Greg asked me, "What is this box back here?" I said, "Well, that's a freezer. It's a camper freezer. And if we get a massive stone, we got to be able to preserve that sucker, take it to somebody like Rick Smith or wherever and say, we got a record." It's important work, and you got to start somewhere. And not being a severe weather expert, it's challenging. That's why Greg's here to help out.
This is fascinating, and I still don't know, even if I was trying to drive into hail, if I could. I just hate hail. But and you're not kidding about Sean Waugh's hail lights or whatever. I mean, we got to have Sean on sometime.
Yeah, I've been trying, and he's very busy. So if you get him, great. I'd love to know.
We'll definitely have him on for the Twisters episode down the road, because he's. Well, that's a whole story. But
right.
What was I going to say? Oh,
don't spill the beans.
I talked to the family around Yukon Union City today that we talked to. I know you saw their house. It was the most heavily damaged house we saw on the whole survey. These poor people had just replaced their roof last year because of hail.
Yeah.
And then and they paid extra for the impact resistant shingles, which I highly recommend, but they didn't help last night very much, but felt so bad for them. But yeah, it's a
much bigger problem than the average person knows about. And if you're in Holton, Maine or San Diego, California, you're paying for hail in your insurance. All right. Mm-hmm. And so it is time to make a big deal about it. And I want to be part of that. I'm not going to come out and solve a problem necessarily, or develop a new shingle, but just the social science of it. And as a geographer, because that's the people, places, and things on top of this great earth, the meteorology intersects with that. I feel like the time has come, and I'm very excited about it. It's going to be a multi-year project. This is our second full expedition. We're going to be out here for a few days. My record doing this, it's only a few weeks old, is 1.76 inches. We got a caliper, a really nice one. We got a scale, the whole bit. So our record's 1.76. Greg's here to help me double that record by the time I go home in a few days. If
That's
the
amazing.
supercells happen.
Ooh,
We'll
you know,
see.
and you mentioned the hail problem too. So before I'm where I was now, I was 7 years in insurance,
Yep.
working with weather insurance, and hail and like insurance fraud, especially with hail, is
Sure.
massive. And so when you talk about the potential problems with insurance and how it is all of them together, it's not just one thing that's going to be a problem for the system. The fraudulent claims with hail are I can't even tell you how bad and how frequent they happen. I'm really hoping the research you do can help some of that, because that's just everybody's going to benefit from that. Because like you said, we're all paying for it.
So I do a podcast series called the Hail Project Podcast. Two things here. The second episode, you guys, it should just be on my public YouTube. You got to see it because the intro is complete. It's got a sort of like a country song, I guess, a banjo-y kind of deal. And a friend of mine that works for a company that I can't mention because they'll get in trouble. The intro song is completely AI generated, and it's a riot. It's really funny. And, it's got a nice little intro with some scenery out in Oklahoma, whatever. But the other point, I would love to have you on to talk about that, because this Hail Project podcast is different stories. So if I could get your contact info, you might be a great subject to talk about the insurance side, because one of my good colleagues and friends of ours, he had 2 roofs destroyed, one near Austin a couple of years ago, and then one in Parker, Colorado last year. And after, won't name the company, but they paid for it, they dropped him. Yep. And it's not his fault. And so it would be was Sienna, right? Sorry.
Serena. Yeah, no,
Serena.
Don't worry. My people will contact your people. We're going to be in touch.
That would be a great avenue to go down to talk about that side of this, the insurance side. So I'm glad to have met you tonight.
Same.
All right, whose turn is it now? Dr. Kim, I think it's your turn.
I think it's my turn.
Unless Serena needed to say something else. I know you were first on the runway. Then it's you, Kim.
I think that's so interesting, the insurance angle. And I'd honestly love to hear just a little bit more about those fraudulent claims. But I know you're really interested too in getting Mark off to dinner. You guys,
got to meet another colleague who lives up here, Matt Harding. He's going to join us for dinner, and then we got to talk strategy tomorrow. We got some big data to find if it happens.
Yes, get some food and then time to do some analysis for a few hours.
Yep.
Ooh.
Yes, tomorrow could be a really interesting day. So we won't hold you, unduly here. But I was really interested. Okay,
That's
so
all right.
There's an interesting insurance angle here. I'm curious. What else are you hoping to learn about hail that could help us to do something in particular? I just want to underscore how much is unknown about hail, and how sparse the observations have been. It's one of our criterion for warning, but boy, and Rick can talk about this all day, I'm sure. Verifying that, like actually getting reports that verify your warnings, so tough, but we know it's a huge problem. So can you tell us a little bit more about what you're hoping that your studies of just some direct observations can get us in knowing about this very impactful issue?
So you hit it. The first part of research is observation, always. And so to observe it first, that's pretty much what year 1 is going to be about this first year. Then eventually, we want to get it to where we can take advantage of social media, YouTube and TikTok, with very short videos, to start putting different experiments in front of our cameras with real world objects and show how hail impacts them, instead of just in the lab. Dr. Giamanco and the scientists at IBHS do a wonderful job in the lab, but let's try to do it in the real world. And let's make it even a little bit fun. Maybe build some Lego houses and put GoPros down there and show those 3-inch stones taking out a big Lego house, because then you can get the views that you want while educating people at the same time with little snippets, maybe from Ian or somebody like Sean or Rick or whoever. And you educate people along the way. You hit them with that sledgehammer of, oh my God, did you see this video of this Barbie house that some moron put out in a hailstorm? Well, I might be the moron, but I also taught you something. I'm serious. I want to start doing that. We want to learn about hail and acoustics, and we're going to put plastic pipes. It's kind of like Blue Man Group meets a hailstorm. And Dr. Giamanco is very excited about that. He's a sound guy. He's a sound and music like nut. And he thinks, oh yeah, the acoustic side of hail. And that gets people paying attention. And it goes back to what we talked about earlier. We have to get people to pay attention and to be weather aware. And this is a good way to do it, even if it's a little bit silly.
Wow, this is amazing. I'm only imagining James Adelite being here, the puns that could be rolling in about but let's just, it's fine that's not happening. But no, you somebody mentioned calipers earlier. I got to tell you, we love calipers. I mean, the Weather Service. I don't care if you estimate hail. I don't care if you say it's bigger than a golf ball, smaller than a baseball. But man, when we get an exact measurement, that can help.
And Greg, will you hand me that thing that looks like a meat thermometer? One of the things that I also want to do when we get a real big one is drill a nice deep hole in it. I want to measure the temperature of the inside near the hail embryo and just kind of know some of that physics of the hail. How cold is it between the outside? What is the temperature gradient of a hailstone? Who's measuring that? Some people are. I know IBHS is measuring the density using the crush thing. I don't know the scientific term. And they've got distrometers that are going to do some amazing stuff. But again, just kind of like Mythbusters meets hail. Let's really dig into this and see what we got. And I think people will become fascinated with it enough. Is it going to be millions? No. But if it's thousands every year, that's more people that are educated about it, and they'll talk about it, and we'll at least make some progress to understand better about this incredible frozen hydrometeorite.
Brady, you're on mute.
Of course I made that mistake. That's
I do it once a
move.
show.
This is my first
it's my
podcast,
turn.
actually, guys. But
Brady,
first time on YouTube.
Yeah, first time on YouTube. This first time in front of a mic. I just got this mic from my mom, so I'm just trying it out. But I think Mark, if we could just somehow find how can we solve people not parking under an overpass during a hailstorm? Right. We will have done our job, because
that's a hard one.
I've been just, as part of my stream, I've been just looking at webcams, and you would not believe the amount of cameras I've pulled up, and you just have people parked all over the country. It's crazy.
I've been coming out here 23 years. I saw it the first time it came out. I still see it. I mean, even that clip I saw of the Twisters movie, they were under an overpass.
We'll get some more of that tomorrow. We have so many GoPros on this Tacoma. It is insane. And we will see people parked under overpasses tomorrow avoiding the hail. That's a whole other issue, though. And that comes back to being weather aware. There's a supercell coming. Let's pull off at this exit and wait for it to pass. Here in down in Norman, I remember I was out here last year, and they did the rolling roadblocks. Maybe some of these supercells, we can do that for hail cores, but I don't know, that might be a little bit too much. But no, you're right. That is a problem, and I see it all the time. And I'll be the guy now that goes by them going, ha ha, suckers. I'm getting that big hail
until they've got both lanes blocked.
Yeah, then that could be a problem.
Yeah. All right, we need to wrap up here. Jen, I think you were finishing us up, unless anybody else had anything else.
Yeah, I am the fangirl part of the show. And just want to say, I am a huge fan of Mark and his hurricane track material. And please check out his Patreon. And then your Discord server is so well put together. It's very organized. And they cover big events for severe, but also for the hurricanes as well. And it's
great team.
Yeah, they do a great job moderating and just have great discussions. So I just wanted to say that, Mark and Greg, thank you for what you're doing with the hail. And we will be watching you all hurricane season for what you're going to be producing and helping to keep people safe. So thank you for what you do.
Thanks. Good to be back here with you guys. We really appreciate it.
Nice meeting all you guys. Good seeing you again, Bill.
Guys. Good to see you.
Serena, get in touch. We got to talk about insurance.
No, we're gonna. I'll find you tomorrow. We'll be talking soon.
Thanks, everybody.
James, did you want to roll the recordeds now, or did you want to go to just have a short halftime and go on and talk to?
No, we'll do the records about 20 minutes from now, so we're good.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, we'll circle back to our Stormfront Freaks folks here, Brady. It's really good to have you on the show tonight. Talk about, though, for a second, both of you. I'll hit both of you real quickly since we don't have a ton of time. How'd you get interested in weather initially? Brady, you first. Serena, you second.
Yeah, I think and that's a really good question. There isn't necessarily an event I can point to in my childhood that I was like, yes, this was the event. Just ever since I was a kid, it was one of those things where, when people would ask, hey, what do you want to be? And people would say, I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a professional sports player. Like, I want to be the weatherman. And, people were like, oh, really? Like when at the sporting events, everyone's trying to get the players' autographs. I was trying to get the local meteorologist autograph, right? Like Jim Ganal, who just retired. He's a Columbus guy, has been doing it for 40 plus years. He's a legend. That was who I was going after. And so, I just think when I found out it was a degree that I could pursue, it was just like, man, this is amazing that I can do that. I think probably the most memorable storm that really that I can remember being a part of was Ian, and that was down in Southwest. I know that was fairly recently, but we my grandparents have a place down there, and I was going to go fly down to try and get it ready because I knew it was a possibility that there was going to be a storm that hit, and the last minute I was about to board the plane. And I decide not to. My mom called me and was like, "Hey, I don't think you should go. I've got a bad feeling about it." And sure enough, we had 9 feet of storm surge. Our neighbors who stayed there were there was 4 feet of water in their house, and they actually waded through the water to come to our house. And we saw it on the Ring camera, them like banging on the door trying to get in. They were fine because they were able to get in the garage and get into the house, which had 2 stories. But I mean, that, like, we talk about hurricanes and the power of hurricanes. That was something where I've never experienced something that close to home, and that, I mean, it was insane. And so after that, that was a couple of years ago, right? But after that moment, I was just like, I've always known weather was serious and hurricanes were serious, but to experience it that close to home was just like, okay, like, we need to figure out a way to be able to communicate and get. And I know it made a right hand turn at the very end, but we need to, that was like motivation to me. Like, I need to get better at communicating to my friends, my family, to be able to help prevent this situation from happening again, right? Because I think that happens all too often is people get surprised, whether that's the meteorologist or whether that's them not paying attention, right? It's like we all need to do, the public needs to do better, and I need to do better, right? And my communication of this, and I need to know more. And so that's really stoked my knowledge of just like, what, I want to learn as much as I possibly can.
And you think about your grandparents on the other end of the message there, and you understand how can you communicate and motivate them to take action. That was a terrifying storm, and one that we all had a bad feeling about. And I'm glad your mom communicated that to you, because mom always knows best. Brady, Serena, talk about the same thing for you for a second. How did it start for you, and what's your most memorable weather event?
Oh boy, I'm gonna have to think about the answer to the second one. The first one's easy. So I was actually born in the Southern Caribbean, where like the islands are desert islands and the weather is really nice all the time. They don't even get hurricanes. And so we moved to the United States. We moved to Denver, Colorado, to Aurora, Colorado in 1980. And when we were there, all of a sudden there was this really bad storm, and the rain was pouring and there was lightning and hail fell, and then a funnel cloud formed and formed this tornado. And I stood in the front doorway of my house as a 5-year-old child and just watched this like tornado just go across the field. And I was just forever changed. There's like no other way to describe it. Like a switch flipped in my head after that point, and I've just had what I think is a very healthy obsession with the weather ever since. So as for most impactful storm, that's really hard to say. I've had the pleasure of being able to do mobile radar data collection in severe thunderstorms and in hurricanes. And I've been, storm chasing and go storm chasing with the Stormfront Freaks every year. Gosh, that's a really hard one. Probably, probably just one that affects you personally again. So I was in, had my degree in meteorology and everything. And I was at work and I was driving home and I was looking at the radar and the forecast and knew that it was going to be bad at home. And ended up getting about 2-inch diameter hail with like 80-mile-an-hour winds that made the vinyl siding on my house look like Swiss cheese. I had horses outside. It shredded every plant and every screen that I had, just completely like ripped off a deck. It's like a second story deck. Like that was one of the times where it's like, oh wow, I was really personally affected by that storm, and seeing, the inches of hail that fell and the eerie fog that forms over top of it as everyone's coming out of their homes going, what the heck happened? There's something different about when it like affects you personally. So no big name storm or anything like that, but you know, really worrying about like, are my horses going to survive?
Yeah.
What's going to happen
Did
with
they
the
do okay
house?
during the storm?
Horses did okay. They didn't go into the barn because it was like a metal roof. And so that was really loud. And so that was scarier for them. So they were outside. So they had some welts, but they were fine. But it's like pastures were flooded and everything was foggy. And it was just, it was an interesting little level of chaos afterwards. It really helps to give you a respect for the weather.
Yeah, and I can tell you right now, like Serena is one hell of a meteorologist. She is when we're storm chasing. Well, first of all, she's also one hell of a driver. When we're storm chasing, she's the driver, and I think between our past two storm chase trips, you drove the entire time, and it had to be something like 4,000 miles total. And we were there. We stayed mostly on paved roads, but she is cool under the pressure. I'm like, haven't seen it. I've never seen a tornado. I'm freaking out. She is cool as a cucumber. So just a shout out there to Serena. She's awesome.
That's so important because the driver has to stay focused on the road predominantly, and you can't be geeking out over the storm or or the data or anything like that. You got to be paying attention to the road. So good for you, Serena. You spent some time at Mount Washington though. That had to really be an incredible experience.
Yeah, that was really fun. And I was really fortunate. I was able to bring the Stormfront freaks up there in January. We did our 200th episode live from up there. So they got to see it and experience too. But that was really fun. I mean, seeing rime ice accretion at, a half a foot or a foot an hour. And watching that kind of thing, feeling exactly how 120-mile-an-hour winds takes like the wind out of you. We installed a temporary weather station on the southeast side of the mountain because we felt we were missing the winds on the northwestern corner with the southeastern flow of the storm and Hurricane Sandy. Installing a weather station 100-mile-an-hour sustained winds. Got back in, I could pour the water out of my boots. I literally like tipped them over and water just poured out of them. The extreme cold, the coldest temperature that I've ever felt with wind chill, -89 on top of Mount Washington. It's been some really cool experiences. If you have like a weather bucket list, Mount Washington helped me check off a lot of those.
And you just had a couple of hikers that had to be rescued, didn't you? Because of the exposure. They didn't expect the conditions to be as brutal as they were.
It happens every year. It happens in June. It happens because people don't understand how quickly the temperature drops with elevation, and especially up there, how bad it can get. People start out from the base with, cotton t-shirts and shorts on and sneakers in April, not realizing that it is still full-fledged winter up at the summit. So yeah, it happens, almost 200 people have lost their lives on Mount Washington. It's frequently listed as like the seventh deadliest mountain in the world, despite that the elevation of it is as tall as my basement was when I lived in Colorado, practically. It's horrifically underestimated. And the conditions up there are ferocious.
And I'll welcome Bruce Jones into the fray tonight. Bruce, are you out hail chasing on the plains tonight with with Greg Nordstrom and Mark Sudduth, or where are you coming from?
I wish. I'm in Kansas City, but I'm driving home. I stayed late this evening to program some radios for the Tennessee Department of Health. So I got busy with a weather radio programming project there at work, and got a little bit late. So I'm on my telephone. I'm in my car.
Your perfect timing for us. We got Brady Harris and Serena Arnold here from the Stormfront Freaks, and we're talking about a whole bunch of stuff. But so you jump in wherever you can, and we'll talk to you in a minute about weather radio. But
will do.
Brady, you had some cool internships, and we always talk about the importance of internships, for young meteorologists. Talk about those experiences for you.
Yeah. So, I think, first of all, I think internships are essential in college, especially because you're going and you're trying to get your degree in meteorology. You're taking a lot of mathematical classes. You're taking a lot of science classes, and there's really kind of three different distinct paths, right? You can go into the broadcast sector, you can go to the private sector, or you can go to the public sector, and there are kind of a three different, but impressive skill sets, right? And so, my recommendation is try to get internships in all three. Some of those are a little bit harder to get, right? The National Weather Service is incredibly competitive, and rightfully so, because it's ultimately the gold standard. That's where a lot of this, some really, really smart, some of the smartest people end up going, and they're the source of truth for forecasts. And so when I was in college, I did a couple internships at TV stations. Actually, I interned at all three of the TV stations in Columbus. And I worked with a couple, amazing people, Chris Bradley, who is now since passed. But I worked with him for a summer, and I worked with Jim Ganal, and I worked with a lot of the Columbus guys. And it was just it was an incredible experience, just getting to actually see what it was like at, I recommend everyone get a any meteorology students try to get an internship at your local TV station. That can, you'll find out real quick whether you like it or you hate it. Right. And I feel like you either are going to love it or you're going to hate it. And then that'll help you kind of narrow down which path you want to do. I also did a internship at AccuWeather in State College for the summer. That was the private sector. And that was also a great experience and helped kind of teach me, how to actually forecast, right? Because we were actually having to forecast, it wasn't just for like a test, right? I was actually having to forecast for the United States for cities and townships and counties. And it was like, okay, this is real now. This isn't, I'm not, doing a multiple choice here. This could impact people's lives. And so, I had a couple of those internships, and it was just a great experience to help me further, figure out what I want to do, what I like doing, what I don't like doing, but also help me kind of hone my skills in the real world in terms of like forecasting and communication. Cause that's, school is great, but you don't get that in school as much as I think you can get that. You learn a lot of the knowledge you need, but then when you get the real world experience too, that really helps you see, how can you actually do this?
And you can see I'm sorry.
You go ahead, and then I want to ask you about your brief television career you did. You were really good,
Yeah.
Serena.
Why
did you stop?
Well, before we do, I have to say, Brady, you could tell when Brady does the outbreak coverages, you can see all of that background that he has with what he does, because it's great. Because when he's doing outbreak, it's not sensationalized. It's very informational. He's using like unique resources to try to paint the picture of where storms are located. He's found some really great networks to utilize to help with that you're not seeing in other places. And so just want to give like Brady some credit for what he's done with outbreak, because you can see the work he put in all those internships like come to life with what he does. Like he gets the communication factor of this. So but yeah, I did a brief stint on TV as well. We had a TV station in New Hampshire. We had two for a little bit. And so when we had a second one, I was the weekend meteorologist on that, which I never saw myself doing. But it was kind of funny. My mother-in-law's wife or husband's friend or something like on the station and happened to just like say, we're casually, oh yeah, we're just looking for a weekend meteorologist. She's like, my daughter-in-law's a meteorologist, and I lived in the same town. So next thing I knew, I was doing the weekend weather. And that was a lot of fun. I didn't appreciate it when I was in college as much. And I dare I say, I almost poo-pooed it a little bit. And then having done it later, being able to communicate to the public the warnings and do so in a way that they can understand was something that I loved and really hit home with me. And I had an absolute blast doing it. And who knows, it could have happened for longer, but the station didn't last very long. So.
Well, you were really good at it, and it was always fun to watch you. So Brady, how did you come to be on the Stormfront Freaks? And talk about that podcast for a minute. I'm sure a lot of our listeners listen and watch it too. Talk about how it's different than WeatherBrains and some of the other podcasts.
Yeah, well, I think it's, well, first of all, just being on this show and watching you guys in the past, this is incredibly interesting. We are a little bit more of a fun or like less. I learn less on our show but like then your guys' show, which is, just kind of putting it bluntly, right? But like I was just listening to Mark South. I was like geeking out hardcore. So, but the Stormfront Freaks, we started back, I think about 7 years ago. Phil Johnson kind of started it, and I just get a call out of the blue, from this guy, Phil, who's like, "Hey, I called the Ohio State Meteorology Club. I got your contact information. Do you want to interview to be on this podcast?" And that was like, when I was, I think, a sophomore in college, and that was my second like interview that I had ever done or tried to do. And so he's like, "All right, I'm going to call you in maybe like a couple hours," because he emailed me first and then he called me. And I just remember I was sweating. I had to change shirts like 3 times, and I was more nervous than I had ever been for it. And I had played sports at a decently high level. I was way more nervous for that, for the interview, than any sporting event I've ever been a part of. And so he called me and we talked, and he's like, "Hey, I'm starting this podcast to talk about the weather. We're gonna try to have some topics and kind of keep it fun and relaxed." And so naturally, for our first show, we had a physicist as our first ever guest. And I think I probably understood about 3 words that he said. That he was so smart, but he was so much smarter than us that we couldn't even ask questions. It was just like, "So, how are you doing?" And it was just, he was a great guest.
That's why we have Neil. That's why we have Neil Jacobs on this show.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Jen is saying ditto to that, James Spann. But Brady, Phil must be the master recruiter, because when he got Jen Watson, I was like,
"Oh yeah,
huh. That's somebody we had on our draft board." And then he got Serena.
Yeah.
And it's like, what in the world? I'd put our panel up against anybody, but that was 2 master strokes right there with those 2.
Yeah, he does not take no for an answer. And so you guys
I've
probably know
that.
that about Phil. He does not take no for an answer, and that's great because he's been able to get some fantastic, because I think it was, especially initially, it was harder for us to get guests because we were all just kind of known, like, at least until Serena and Jen joined. It was myself, who I hadn't done anything in the field, and Phil hadn't really done it. We had Maz, who was a former meteorologist, but we had trouble kind of. So Phil, to his credit, he's amazing at just getting people and getting guests, and he's done so much hard work at kind of building this. And so Phil's awesome.
Well, I see on the website that you have Brad Pitt, and I've looked through several episodes. I haven't seen him yet. Is he like, y'all just keep him in the back or what?
Every time we ask Brad to come on, and his agent will tell us, "Hey, he's coming on," and then 9:00 rolls around and no show.
Always falls through. I know how that goes. So now, Brady, what inspired you to start this severe weather streaming show? Because we know there's some other folks out there doing it, and some have had real monetary success at it. So talk about what your inspiration was and about what your MO is behind the show.
Yeah, great question. I think, well, first of all, like my motivation for this is not monetary at all, right? I think there's a lot of people that, just like in the video game streaming, I feel like that the weather streaming is now kind of going through that transformation. And there's a lot of people that are like, "Hey, I want to make $1 million. I want to be famous. I want to be rich." It's like, that is not my motivation at all. So I've done maybe 8 outbreak streams so far. Probably about 70, 80 hours of streaming, probably about another 70 to 80 hours of work. And I haven't, we haven't gotten any sort of monetization from it. So it's really, it was born out of a passion for meteorology and a passion to communicate the weather. But I think that, there's so many people on YouTube and on some of these other platforms that are, like you guys had talked about earlier in the show, that are getting their weather information from these different sources, that some may be better than others, some may not be so great, and some, there's a lot of hype. And really the goal of Outbreak was like to say, and I'm not saying I am the perfect mouthpiece, right? Our goal was really to say, hey, let's get, and really where we're trying to go with Outbreak is let's get people on the show that know and are, the people that we should be listening to, right? Because ultimately there is a huge audience there, and there's a ton of people that are watching these videos and these streams, and they're getting weather information, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad, right? And so really the goal of Outbreak was just an outpouring of like, okay, I want to start to build this show to try to get an audience so that I can try to help educate people about the weather. Like I said, if one person comes away from my stream and can learn something about the weather, like I try to use, like the terms that the National Weather Service uses, MCS and correlation coefficient and all these other things that are the public has no idea about. And I try to use those terms and explain them in a way that we can, and do it live with weather that we're looking at, so that people can, because I want to try to bridge the gap where someone needs an image to be able to take a tornado warning seriously. We have to see a tornado to take it seriously. I think if people can understand and learn, okay, how do I read the radar? How can I identify a tornado? If we could get to a point where people could identify a tornado like we can, and I know that's a stretch, right? But that alone would help tremendously help people understand the dangers of weather. So that's really why I started Outbreak, because I wanted to build the platform, and our goal is to have guests on that show, kind of like how we do the podcast, and have, people that, Rick, obviously your name at the top of my mind. I know you're probably going to be busy during events like that, but it's to have people like Rick and have people, the whole panelists on here, you guys would be perfect for it, right? It's just to have people that are knowledgeable that can talk about some of these things as they're happening into a globe, to a national market.
Well, Brady, it seems that you already have a good following. The streams I've seen, you've got good audience numbers, and I know you're probably wanting to grow those. Are you using any of the YouTube monetization models at all? Or is that something y'all are going to grow to? Kim said earlier she was humbled by your water bottle there. It made her wine glass look really pitiful there, Brady. But that's good.
Yeah, I'm at the 1 p.m. mark, so I've got some work to do.
You got some catching up to do. It's gonna be a long night, Brady.
I've got some. No, I mean, monetization and all this. Like, I'm not a YouTube guy. I've never done YouTube before, else than making a video for my mom on several years ago. So I'm just kind of figuring it out as I go, trying to figure out how that works. But I'm trying to stay away from the hype, and trying to find a way to not scare people and not hype things up. But still kind of figuring out how to get people in the stream. Cause that's really the hardest part is, the folks, a lot of people on YouTube are using like these, you guys said it, thumbnails and all this other stuff it's really freaking a lot of people out. It's bringing people in the stream, but it's freaking people out. And I want to try and find a formula that can bring people in the stream, but doesn't freak people out. Right. And so I'm just kind of every weekend I'm spending hours just trying to figure out, redesign things, redesign my graphics, redesign everything to just try to figure out what works and what doesn't, but with the lens of education and non-hype, right? Because that's ultimately, I think, what will be best in the end for people, rather than, hey, click on this thumbnail and you're going to see a massive wedge, and I'm going to scare the crap out of you for 5 hours. That's not what we want.
So are y'all streaming tomorrow, Brady, with
yes,
the activity in the Midwest? Good. Well,
yeah,
I will be tuned in.
Great. Yeah, I'll be in a hotel room, so hopefully the Wi-Fi holds. We'll see.
Well, good. Well, Serena, you've got Francis the Fox, and talk about how that character came into being and how you become James is a successful children's book author too, but he won't tell us his secret. So we're going to ask you to kind of share some of your secrets tonight and tell us about, the book and the impact it's had on kids.
Yeah. So I never thought I would be a children's book author ever. That was not on the radar at all. But here we are. And it all started because my sister-in-law came to me and said that my niece was really afraid of storms. And she's like, hey, Aunt Serena's a meteorologist. She can help you out. And so I said, all right, I totally can. Yeah. All she needs is a good book, because anytime there's fear, I think education is always the key to unlocking that fear and helping, people through it, no matter their age. So I went to a bookstore and I started looking for books and looking for books. And I was like, these are not good. These are terrible. There's the terminology is wrong and things are inaccurate, or they're focused more on like what it does to your hair, or, maybe the clothes you have to wear. And it's like, this is not going to help kids at all understand severe weather and be weather aware and understand how to survive severe weather. So, in all my free time and just like enjoying taking on too much, I was like, hey, I'll just write a kid's book. Why not? And so had this idea, wrote it all out and kind of shopped around for how to do this. Like, how do you publish it and how does this work? And ended up like self-publishing the first book. So the first book was The Weather Story with Francis Fox. And so I wanted to have a character that could narrate it rather than just talk about the weather. And I'm highly biased to foxes. They're just like my favorite animal in the world. And so I was like, let's just have a fox kind of narrate it. And I wanted the fox to be curious and inquisitive, but smart and strong and all of these things. And, kind of a good role model for adults and kids and whoever read it. And so I ended up illustrating it myself. I did everything myself and I self-published the book. It only took 11 months. I thought it'd be like a quick thing. It wasn't. It took a really, really long time and was very difficult. And the impact it has had I never saw coming. It helped my niece. So that was really cool. And she's one of the 4 girls that it's dedicated to. But to hear the stories of kids who have read it and had their parents read it to them, and how they understand weather, and the number of parents and grandparents that message me afterwards and say, I learned something from this book, because for me, it was so important for it to be meteorologically accurate and really, really help, people understand the weather and also have it rhyme. That was another thing that it had to do. I wanted it to be like lyrical and beautiful because I had really young kids too. And I remembered the books I liked reading and the ones I didn't. And it's nice when they get sing-songy. And I've had kids come up to me and quote it. And there's kids that'll say, you shouldn't go outside until the storm is out of sight. That, if cloudy, rainy, windy days mean low pressure's on the way, like, it's like, oh my God, you're a child. Like, this is so amazing. This is so cool. And so that's kind of how it came to be. I've gotten pictures of kids that have dressed up as Francis Fox for Halloween, or as like dress up as your favorite character in school day. I cry a little when I see those. Like, I'm not going to lie. It's just like incredible. It's just so amazing. So this little old book that I did to help my niece and I thought could help other people because I saw a need in the market, just exceeded my expectations.
That is outstanding. I was going to ask you who your illustrator was because you really did a great job with the artwork. I was very, very impressed. And so that's pretty cool. James, you got any questions for Serena about her books or Brady and his work or anybody else on the panel before we go to the recorded segments?
No, Serena did a great job with the book. And I've done children's ministry for 30 years. And if I didn't do this for a living, I'd be a 3rd grade science teacher. That's where it's at. 3rd grade. 3rd grade. They understand sarcasm. They think you're funny. They have the cognition to learn middle school level science. They're sweet and they don't smell bad. That's where you want to be, is 3rd grade. And so I like to target 3rd grade. And I'm not a creative writer. I'm dyslexic. And I've not talked about that much. But our youngest son and my wife kind of help write the stories with the things that we've done. But it's just great. Serena's done a great job. And so when are you going to stop, Serena? How many more to go?
Well, it's actually kind of funny. So it got the attention of a publisher. And I do have a publisher now. And so it is a sequel's coming. So we'll be making the big announcement on the start of hurricane season because the follow-up book is called The Hurricane Story. So Francis Fox is coming back and we are going to talk about the hurricane story. And it's really amazing because it actually ties to a lot of what we were talking about earlier in the conversation. It needs to be factual, but it needs to be a way that everybody can understand. I talk about condensation nuclei, for the love of God, in the book for children, but in a way they can understand it, because I think that's so important for them to I talk about the severity of storm surge. I want kids to know that, you know what, you may have to evacuate, you may have to leave your home. It may be a few days that things are a lot different for you. I really want to set a realistic expectation with kids about what to expect and how hurricanes form and function. And so I'm just so excited about this. I'm not illustrating this one, thank God. I've got Landon Goldsboro, an illustrator, and it's all being done digitally, which is going to be really, really fun and amazing. I sent, the WeatherBrains crew got a preview of the book here. I'm so excited about it. It's going to do what the hurricane story did, but for a different area. And I think the timing is really incredible too with this forecast hurricane season. I just want people to take the weather seriously and understand it a lot better. And I really hope the hurricane story can do that.
And what's the target? I mentioned third grade, 9, 10-year-olds. What's your range, the target for this book?
Yeah, it's so hard because it's a book that can kind of go through the ages, like the weather story, right? Like bright colors and pretty pictures that young kids, preschoolers can see and understand. But then when they start being able to read it on their own in early elementary school, it's a different thing. And they're starting to visualize the words and see it. And what does evacuate mean? What is storm surge? Condensation nuclei. And then as they get a little bit older, like as teenagers, they're going to age out of it, of course, because they're going to be far too cool for the Francis Fox. But then hopefully as parents, they like come back to it again. So really for the kid range, I mean, it's from like preschoolers up probably all the way through elementary school. And, hopefully a little bit beyond.
Okay, cool. And Brady, real quick on your operation, tell me, when do you go live? What triggers the live stream?
Normally it's a 10% risk for tornadoes. We usually, like, yesterday was close. We almost went live, and because really I think it's something I'm starting to factor into is anytime we have a significant like population. So we originally kind of started with, okay, every time we see 10% tornado risk, we'll go live. But I think yesterday and the Houston storms that rolled through, I mean, incredibly impactful, right? And I think so. I'm starting to adjust that criteria, and really, honestly, whenever I can go live, if there's an impactful weather event, if I because I have another job and everything, will try to go live, right? So, but generally 10% tornado, and then I'm starting to kind of see if I can factor in some wind into that, especially because of how impactful those things can be. Like we saw the past week or two.
What kind of radar software do you use?
So we are actually using GR Earth and GR Analyst. We just got we partnered with Allison House. So we've been using those products, and this is my first time using those, and it's incredible what you can do on that radar. I know, that's a incredibly powerful radar tool. So that tool itself, I'm just kind of learning it, and there's so much that both of those can do. So,
and do you have live streams from the field, all that stuff going on?
Elston, when Phil goes chasing, or when Greg Johnson goes chasing, or we also have another co-host that'll chase. We don't actually have any other chasers. Now what we have been doing is we've been looking at like the web camera, or like the traffic cameras across the country, to try and get a visual, because visual is so important to people right now. We talked about social science earlier and getting people motivated to take action. So, we've been trying to find any sort of image or visual, and we're kind of restricted what we can show, right? I think some people will show like Twitter feeds and other things like this. I don't want to be the guy that steals people's content. That is such a big problem on social media nowadays. And so, I don't want to be the guy that will just like pull up a tornado that someone else is streaming, because that isn't, first of all, that isn't cool. Like, these people are putting their lives, their souls into this business. And so, the visuals we have is pretty much whenever our guys will go chasing, we'll put them on, or, traffic cameras.
Awesome. All right, Serena, real quick before we take a break, tell people how they can get your new book. Plug away,
Yes.
go.
Yeah, yeah. So on June 1st, we're going to be making the big announcement. We're going to have a web page for it and everything. It's going to be francisfoxstories.com come June 1st. So, and you can also follow me on all the different social medias at WX Serena, and I will definitely be sharing it with everybody so they can pre-order, and then hopefully people will start getting the book in hand about a month after that, somewhere around July 1st.
So like June 1st is coming up quick here.
Wow.
Goodness.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No, we're just a few days away.
And Serena, is
All
it
right, it's time.
Francis with an E or an I?
Yeah, Francis,
none?
FRANCES, foxstories.com. Yeah.
So let's take a quick pause, and we have much more to go. We're going to pause for Tony Rice and his astronomy report. We've got Jen this week in tornado history. We'll come back with Bruce Jones, maybe a little email, picks of the week, and more as WeatherBrains rolls along.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your astronomy outlook. You'll probably start hearing some news of a rare planetary alignment coming up on June 3rd. You'll be able to see 6 planets align in the sky. Jupiter, Mercury, Mars, Uranus, Neptune, and Saturn will line up in what some are calling the planetary parade. First, that line in the sky. That's where the planets always are. It's called the ecliptic, and it's where the planets always move through the sky. Each planet is within just a few degrees of that line, so there's really nothing special there. It would be far rarer and more concerning if they weren't in a line. Next, that lineup. Yeah, each of those planets will be on that side of the sun. It's the right side if you are looking from the top down onto the solar system. And that means that this lineup of planets is visible in the morning. Which brings us to visibility. The word visible is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. In reality, only Mars and Saturn will be visible to the unaided eye. To see them, look to the southeast about an hour before sunrise. Saturn's going to be pretty easy to find, about halfway up between the horizon and directly overhead. Down into the east, you'll find orangey Mars. Continue following that line down and about the same Mars-Saturn separation to the north, and you'll find Uranus. See it? Probably not. It's a long way away and it requires a very dark sky to see, and a mortgage payment-sized telescope. Same story with Neptune. Next on the horizon are Mercury and Jupiter. You're not going to see Mercury either. It's too dim and it's too close to the horizon and too close to the sun to see for the next few weeks. So why the growing hype for this parade of planets? Honestly, I don't know. Jupiter, Mars, and Saturn will be on display this June, but the end of June is far better than the beginning. Personally, I've got my calendar marked for June 29th and 30th. Jupiter, Mars, the last quarter moon, and Saturn will be nearly evenly distributed, rising in a line across the eastern pre-dawn sky. That'll be a pretty cool sight, far more worth setting your alarm for than the parade of planets you can't see. That's your astronomy outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
This week in tornado history. For the Storm Prediction Center database, there have been 6 F5 or EF5 tornadoes observed since 1950 in the state of Iowa. The last one hit on May 25th, 2008. This massive tornado, which eventually grew to over a mile wide, began near the Butler-Grundy County line, just to the south of the Applington area at 4:48 p.m. Central Time. Within 8 minutes, the tornado had grown to almost 3/4 of a mile wide as it moved into the southern end of Parkersburg. A third of the town experienced tremendous damage. At 5:09 p.m., the twister moved just north of New Hartford, causing structural and tree damage. It weakened east of town and traveled into northern Black Hawk County, staying north of Waterloo and Cedar Falls. During this time, significant straight-line winds were produced from a larger rear flank downdraft just south of the tornado track. A wind gust of 93 miles per hour was measured at the Waterloo Airport. North of Dunkerton, the tornado strengthened once again and reached its maximum width of close to 1.2 miles. Significant damage occurred to a farmstead in this area. At least 627 homes were damaged along the path, and this does include 288 homes destroyed in Parkersburg. An initial survey team was deployed the day after the tornado at 10 a.m. Over 40 damage indicators were identified during the survey, and in parts of Parkersburg and New Hartford, low-end EF5 damage was discovered. We have a detailed premium summary on this event. Become a member of our website at tornadotalk.com.
My 2 probably most important weather books when I was a kid was Snowden Flora's Tornadoes of the United States. I bet Bruce Jones has got a copy of that somewhere in his library.
Yeah.
And Tornadoes of Iowa. which was one of the most incredible picture books of tornadoes there ever was. I think the statute of limitations has run out, but I have to say that book may have gotten lost from the library sometime when I was in
Uh-oh.
about the fifth grade.
Yeah.
So don't anybody tell the Birmingham Public Library. But Bruce Jones, it's good to have you here tonight. Thank you for staying and programming those radios, and thank you for hanging out with us, even though you have to do it in the
Sure.
car. I got an
Sure.
ad this weekend for the Midland GXT67 Pro. Talk for a minute. I know Troy can fill me in some too, and I'm sure Rick and I'm sure James has some experience with this. But what is GXT radio, and can anyone operate them?
Well, these are radios that operate on the GMRS frequencies. That's the General Mobile Radio Service frequencies. And I like to characterize it as CB Radio 2.0. These GMRS frequencies go a lot farther than a CB radio, and they're much clearer. If you're going to do one of these Jeep Jamborees and you go out to Moab, Utah with your Jeep, the Jeep Jamboree requires the Jeeps to have a GMRS radio and not an old CB, because the GMRS signals go a lot farther. So if your Jeep happens to break down and you have a GMRS radio in there, you can send out a help me signal that a lot more people will hear. So a GMRS radio, these are walkie-talkies. You can buy them at Walmart. You can buy them at sporting goods stores. A lot of hikers and hunters have them already. And they're very popular and very easy to use. They're basically a push-to-talk radio. You're supposed to have a FCC license, but it requires no test. You send the FCC $35 and you tell them your name and address, and you have a license for the next 10 years for you and anyone in your family. But essentially, these are really, really good quality walkie-talkie radios, and the GMRS frequencies, mountaintop to mountaintop, can go a long, long ways. Last weekend, I believe it was last weekend, I was out in Los Angeles, and the LA Fire Department CERT team in the Sherman Oaks area was having their radio comms training, and they train on GMRS walkie-talkies, so that in the event of a huge earthquake in Southern California, these communications teams in every neighborhood of Los Angeles County will be able to establish communications between their neighbors and between their local fire station. Because when the big quake hits, the cell phone system will be useless. So they're encouraging everyone to be part of these comms teams with these little walkie-talkie radios. You can buy them at Walmart. They're amazing.
The cool thing I thought about the version that the Midland ad was touting, Bruce, was that it has weather radio on it, which I thought was a cool feature, and that gave me a chance to ask you about it tonight, since you're the national ambassador for weather radio.
Well, thanks. It's interesting. I told National Weather Service, I said, between Uniden, Cobra, Motorola, and Midland, we're all manufacturing walkie-talkies that have a weather radio button on them. And I said, that alone represents millions and millions of weather radio receivers that go out into the public every single year. So the weather radio audience is huge. It's growing all the time. And yes, these walkie-talkie radios are built with a weather radio button on them. So wherever you go, you have instant access to the latest information, alerts, and warnings.
So now I like the term that Tony Rice used in his segment, Bruce. He called it, a mortgage payment size telescope. Are these mortgage payment size prices for these radios?
The consumer grade is, I think maybe the most expensive one is $89.99 for a pair of two of them. That new one, the GXT67 that we put out, that's a higher end model. You could drop that in a creek or a stream and pull it out and it'll still operate. So it's submersible down to 1 meter or something like that. So it's a really rugged unit. And for that one, I think they're, I don't know, they're more like $120 a piece or something like that. They're more expensive simply because they're a tougher radio, almost made for like hardcore use. But these things, they're very popular. They're selling like hotcakes.
Well, Bruce, a normal WR20 is more like the mortgage payment on your doghouse, probably.
Yeah.
Talk
Yeah.
about that and the special offer you got for our audience.
Yeah, we appreciate everyone that listens and watches Weather Brains. We really do. We're glad that you're part of this wonderful world of weather. And here in the United States, we have the craziest weather on the planet, which is why we listen to Stormfront Freaks and Weather Brains, because this stuff is interesting to talk about. But it also has to be survivable. We have Father's Day coming up, so make sure you think of NOAA Weather Radio as a great Father's Day gift, because it is. It's good for your dad, for your grandfather, for your uncles, for your cousins. It's good for any home to have a NOAA Weather Radio. It's the official voice of the National Weather Service. And if you're a listener to Weather Brains and you go to midlandusa.com, you can use a promo code and get 25% off the purchase of any weather radio. And the promo code is SPAN25, SPANN 25. That's SPAN as in James Span 25. Get you 25% off of a weather radio purchase. So we're anticipating a really active hurricane season. I don't know if they'll stay out in the ocean or whether they'll come ashore. Either way, have an emergency crank radio in your home for hurricane season, and always have a white desktop public alert certified WR120. It's the gift that you can give that will truly save another person's life.
Indeed. Thank you, Bruce. And let's do a quick email. We love the email segment. So maybe Jen's got one for us this week.
I do. Our email of the week comes from Art Reed, and it is a possible show suggestion and also a suggestion to possibly go get this book. It is called Typhoon Truce, 1970, 3 Days in Vietnam When Nature Intervened in the War, by Robert Curtis. That's the title of the book. And it's about the typhoons and the rescue that followed, as well as a very unvarnished look at life as in a helicopter transport unit during the Vietnam War. It was first published in 2015. Not sure if the author's still around, but came in with this possible show suggestion for Bill to look through here. And we love your show suggestions, just like this, Art. Thank you so much. All the emails that come into us, we try to get through those and read. We thank you for your comments and what have you. Email at weatherbrains.com. Don't forget to sign up for the newsletter too. I think it's Rick this week with the amazing article. And so we'll have that coming down the pike on Thursday mornings right into your email inbox. You can sign up for that on our website.
So thank you so much, Jen. And let's go to picks of the week. No, the show has run long, but it's been a really good show this week. So this is where everybody's going to go around the horn, share something weather related. This can be a website, data source, hardware, software, you name it, something that's cool and it's weather related. So let's go out to Rick Smith. Rick, give us something really good. You've always got something good.
Yes, if I remember how to unmute here. Yeah, today is the 11 years ago today. We were watching coverage of what happened in Newcastle, Oklahoma City, and more when the nation's last EF5 tornado hit. So we have a story map that our office put together last year for the 10-year anniversary. So that's my pick of the week, kind of remembering that event from a meteorological perspective, and also taking lead from what Jen does at Tornado Talk, remembering the people that died in that event too. So that's my pick.
Excellent. Great pick. And all of these will be on the website, weatherbrains.com. So Jen, let's roll to you. Give us a good pick of the week.
All right. So in our Discord server, this post came in from Twitter/X from Jeff Petrowski, and it just made me smile. I always find David Hoadley on Hilltop looking at the first storm of the day. He is the pioneer of storm chasing there in Colorado. And I just loved it. I love David Hoadley. I've met him a couple of times at the Mid-Atlantic Severe Weather Conference. He's so fun. He's always interested in the tornado history that we have spread out there, and asks us a lot of questions. And it just made me smile to see him out there chasing today.
Outstanding. All right, Troy Kimmel, what you got?
Rick may have to help me a little bit with this one. But notice today, Rick, at least one of the Weather Service offices down here gave a little publicity to a new site being developed through headquarters, I guess through WPC, Weather Prediction Center, on heat risk categories that they're going to begin to move forward on. Is it all etched out in stone just yet? Probably not. There'll probably be some changes. but really kind of a neat website where you can look at 7-day heat risk by category. It's kind of a neat little website, pretty simple and basic, but I think a nice little tool that I think will become, I don't know if it may be more experimental at the moment, but hopefully will become operational in the future, Rick.
No, I think you got it. That's exactly what it is, and we're excited about it.
Yeah.
Good deal. All right, Bruce Jones, give us a pick.
Hey, I'd like to give a shout out to Jen and the crew at Tornado Talk for their tweet this afternoon about the Ruskin Heights tornado that came through Kansas City back in the 1950s. That went through the community of Ruskin Heights, which were relatively new homes, but they were slab homes, and there were no basements to be had. So there was a fatality count there in Ruskin Heights, but it was a rather famous tornado as it came right through. National Weather Service actually put out a tornado warning and mentioned the word tornadoes, which was rather odd back in the 1950s, but it just kind of brought us into the modern era of tornado forecasting and alerting.
Very good. All right, Bruce, thank you. Okay, so I think Kim had to drop off. So Serena, give us a pick of the week. It can be your new book or something, anything. Go.
Yeah, I'd love to make it the book, the hurricane story. But you know what? I've been getting a lot of questions on social media about just how accurate are the forecast models, how accurate is the Colorado state predictions, how accurate are hurricane forecasts once they've made landfall. And so I've been sharing with people a model verification page from NOAA and the National Weather Service. I can send you guys a link to it where you can actually look at the biases in the air statistics for global models, regional models, hurricane models, even has ocean lake models and air quality models. So when people ask, well, which is better, the GFS or the Euro, or just how good is the HUR, I can answer them. And it's been real fun to tell people that when you're forecasting hurricane track and intensity, that you can rely on the Euro for track, but the data says to trust the GFS for intensity, and it's all data driven, which is really cool. So it's a verification page for all the different forecast models, and I just love having data.
Love it, because everybody has an opinion, but all that matters is the numbers, the data to back it up. So that's outstanding. All right, so let's see, Brady, go give us something good.
Yeah, so you guys may have heard about this before, but I don't know if you guys have heard of the site Blitzer Tongue. You guys heard of that?
The lightning deal?
The light, yeah. You guys may have done this one before, but I just go crazy over lightning. If any of you guys
I can verify
watched
this, having been in a car storm chasing with Brady. Holy cow!
Brady with lightning.
Yep. It's just when I was a kid, I tried to get it on camera all the time. I never got a good picture of it, but this is a really cool tool that just shows you live lightning strikes. Of course, when I put it on screen, there's one. Okay, there's a couple. But it's just a really cool tool that shows you lightning, and oftentimes I'll use it just as if I see a storm really starting to show a bunch of lightning, a bunch of electricity with it, that's a huge indication to me, right? Okay, this storm's really starting to get going. We're going to have to watch it, right? So it's just a really fun tool that I like watching from time to time.
No, that's cool. That is very addictive. I will say that. Very good. All right. So Troy, you need to plug the AMS event. Go.
Yeah, I'm just going to say real quick, this is for Kim. She brought it up, and then Rick found the website for it. But we have the 51st conference in broadcast meteorology and the 7th conference in weather warnings communication, part of the AMS, that'll be coming up in Myrtle Beach, right? That'll be coming up in about 2 weeks, it's about 2 or 3 weeks from now. And I'm going to be there. Todd Glickman and I will be to talk to some of the people there about the CDM, Certified Digital Meteorologist exam, being on that committee. So we're looking forward to first time I will ever be in Myrtle Beach. So I'm looking forward to that.
Good deal. All right, Bill Murray, go.
Yeah, James, Troy was admiring my one of my AvGeeks YouTube channels behind us here during the show. So I thought I would plug it, LA Flights. And James Spann, if it actually showed up on your YouTube channel, I'm sorry, because I think I was still in your YouTube channel today when I signed on to there. So please forgive me. So if you start getting ads for aviation gear or something, you'll know why that happens. But anyway, LA Flights, a guy named Peter does it. usually at LAX. This week he's at
Anchorage. Yeah.
And just spectacular photography of planes taking off and landing, piped in ATC. He makes it fun and engaging with the YouTube audience. And I just find myself toward the end of the show just thinking, I got to throw this guy $20 just for, the entertainment factor. And it's something you can watch while you're in the office on the big TV. It's, doesn't distract you from your work, and it's kind of fun. So, but if you get a chance, check out LA Flights. There's several like that, but I think he's one of the most engaging folks, and I think that's pretty super. James, some of the guests that are coming up next week, I'm super excited. Beckett Moore, the Weather Wonderkind, will be joining us. That show is going to be on Tuesday, the 28th. That's okay with you, James? You got no problem with that? Being on the 28th?
Which date, Bill? I'm sorry.
Tuesday,
which
the
date?
28th, the day after Memorial Day.
I'm
Is that
good.
okay?
I'm good.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that works fine. Cameron Nixon is going to join us on June 3rd. That will be a fun show. June 10th, Megan Williams from the National Weather Service in Slidell. Megan's funny because her mom was my administrative assistant 30 years ago, and I tried to get her interested in weather as a child, and started sending her the WeatherWise magazine when she got a little older. And here, lo and behold, she became a meteorologist with the Weather Service. Sam Lilo, I may be saying that right or wrong. Troy, correct me, or Serena, or any Rick. But Sam's got a cool story. I'm going to be excited to talk to him. And then we're out to about July 1st. I've got a show that I can't announce yet, but I'll be able to, once the NDA is clear, I'll be able to talk about that. That's for Monday, July 1st. But I picked up a suggestion tonight and a cool new book. Thank you, Amazon. And Jen, the paperback is going to be released on that book July 31st. So they're still actively promoting it. So that's pretty cool. So that's all that's going over here in the guest booking officers department, James.
Awesome. So Serena, one more time, plug away. Social media accounts, books, whatever. Plug away.
Yeah, sure. So you can definitely find me on all the different social medias, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, sometimes Twitter. Everything is at WXCYRENA at Weather Serena. So if you want to hear what's coming on with the hurricane story, or follow any of the stuff that I do where I'm trying to educate the general public about the weather, find me there. But definitely excited about the pre-release hurricane story on June 1.
Now on TikTok, everybody's TikTok. When I turn that thing on, they're doing one of three things. They're dancing, they're funny, or they're cussing. Which one do you do?
She does 2 out of the 3, James.
Oh gosh. There's some occasional swearing if I could be totally honest. There probably is.
You dance?
I've probably done 1 or 2 dances if they're trendy and they go up for a short period of time as a story and that's it. But no, I'm really a caped crusader trying to fight people who post, the 348-hour GFS forecast, or even better, what's I found is a big problem is people who actually just post forecast model imagery from months ago and will post it as current. There's people that if you're posting in the late forecast, at least I can say you're trying to be honest, even though I don't like it. There's actually an entire group out there that will be genuinely dishonest and will absolutely post falsified information. And I've had to call a lot of people out on it. So that's actually, witches. I do a lot of that.
It's a sea of ignorance over there. So Brady, do you dance on TikTok?
I don't dance, and I don't think you want to see me dance. But Serena, I think we're gonna have to, when we go storm chase, you're gonna have to teach me whatever dance you learned, and we might have to do a little Stormfront Freaks group dance. Although I'm gonna be in the way back where no one can see me. But no, I don't.
So Brady, plug away, man. Plug the show. Plug whatever you need to plug. Go.
Cool. Well, I tried TikTok for a little bit. I failed miserably. So now I'm just on Instagram and Twitter. It's at Stormcat5 with _. I'm still trying to figure out who the original Stormcat5 is and get that from him, but mine's got an underscore in it. But so that's on Twitter and Instagram. And then just started a new show called Outbreak. It's on Stormfront Freaks YouTube page. So go over there and check us out. We'll probably be live tomorrow covering the severe weather out in the Midwest.
Awesome. Well, listen, we probably better wrap this thing up here because we've been on the air for like 6 hours tonight. But it's been a good show. It's been worth it. I mean, it's been really good tonight. So if you're new here, we're typically on the air Monday night at 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central. on WeatherBrains, the YouTube channel, youtube.com/WeatherBrains. But most of you listen, we know that, to the audio version, which comes out early Tuesday morning. If you want to get in touch with us, the email address, it is email@weatherbrains.com, but we're honored you're here. Thanks a lot for listening. Have a marvelous week, and God bless. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, the show shortening initiative backslid a little bit tonight.
Yeah, it's all right. No, it was good. It was good.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
Great
Thanks, Brady.
show.
Y'all,
Thanks,
Brady.
Serena.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
guys.
Serena.
Thanks,
We
guys.
say in
It was
Alabama,
great.
Sirena.
Thank you.